Chapter 71. Ian had one foot on his chair and was eating with his body slanted. Hearing Chi-Yu's surprise, he could not help but chuckle and quickly stuffed the food in his chopsticks into his mouth. What's 10 million? Compared to the lives of my brothers, money is just a worldly possession. Brother Chi, you don't think it's too little, do you? Chi-Yu rolled his eyes. Too little? I've never seen so much money in my life. Since I can't refuse your kindness, I'll accept it. Thank you, sect masters. If the other party was in the drug business, perhaps Chi-Yu would not have accepted the money. However, the Sacred Flame sect was in the arms business. Chi-Yu was not the kind of gentleman who knew how to repay favors. He was a ruffian and was in need of money. Why would he not accept it? This could be considered as taking it in the right way. Seeing Chi-Yu accept the money happily, Hu Guang could not help but be surprised. He sat next to Chi-Yu and immediately extended his hand to Chi-Yu, saying, "All right, we're brothers from now on. If there's anything you need our help with, just let us know." Chi-Yu shook hands with Hu Guang. To his surprise, Hu Guang, who looked sloppy and wretched on the surface, actually had a hand as fair as a woman's. His hand was very small and very soft to hold. Not only was his skin fine, but it was even a little slippery. It was hard to hold it firmly in one's palm. His hand was not stable, but it seemed to be floating. A faint energy wrapped around his hand, and the energy was completely restrained, forming an effective defense. This prevented Chi-Yu from sensing his true strength. Hu Guang had a completely different feeling towards Chi-Yu. The feeling that Chi-Yu gave him was like an illusory black hole. It seemed like there was nothing in it, but it gave him a feeling of fear. After a simple handshake, both of them had surprised expressions in their eyes. Hu Guang chuckled and said, "Looks like we really are kindred spirits. Meng Bei, you go out and keep watch. Don't let anyone disturb me without my permission." Meng Bei agreed and got up to leave. Hu Guang said, "A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush." When I heard Meng Bei's report, I was very interested in Brother Chi's ability. Sean and I also have our own abilities, but we always feel that the energy in our bodies is very large, but we can't find a good way to use it. Therefore, we would like to communicate with Brothers Chi and see if we can get some inspiration. Of course, we don't want to know Brothers Chi's cultivation method. We just want to ask you how to use this special ability to bring out all the energy. Although firearms and explosives were rampant in this world, the stronger one was, the better the living conditions would be. It's not easy for us to do the underworld. You have to be careful when you go out to visit prostitutes for fear of being shot in the back. Ian pursed his lips and said, "Who doesn't know that you can do it 7 times a night? 1 minute each time, and that includes foreplay." Hu Guang was furious. F***ck. I'm F***king talking about serious business. Can you not interrupt? Hello, the last time I was flirting with a female student, she took away your wallet. To think that you're the deputy sect leader of the Sacred Flame sect. Looking at their hooligan habits of exposing each other's scars, Chi-Yu felt much friendlier. He chuckled and said, "I say, can the two of you stop quarreling? Brother Hu Guang, what is your special ability? You should also know that the way in which special abilities are manifested is different. I'm not sure if your special ability has anything in common with mine. If there isn't, even if I want to help you, I'm afraid I won't be able to." Hu Guang and Ian looked at each other. Ian said, "There are very few people who know that we have special abilities, and there are very few people who have even seen us. Since we've invited Brothers Chi here today, we don't treat you as an outsider. Alright, old Hu, are you going first or should I go first?" Hu Guang laughed and said, "I'll go first. Who asked me to be your big brother?" As he said that, Hu Guang's small body stood up from his seat and took a step back. His small eyes hidden behind his glasses flashed, and his originally black pupils gradually turned green. His body seemed to have grown a lot taller, and with a slight shake of his shoulders, all the bones in his body seemed to have disappeared in an instant. With a nimble turn of his mind, he actually squeezed through the gap in the back of the chair. His movements weren't fast, but it seemed to be full of power. Suddenly, his body that had passed through the chair moved like lightning, and his left hand suddenly extended forward. Chi-Yu could clearly see that at this moment, his fingernails had already turned black. He grabbed the wall next to him, and suddenly, with a loud piu-piu sound, 5 small black holes appeared in the wall. What was even more shocking was that the 5 holes that were pierced by his fingers were actually gradually expanding, and green liquid slowly flowed down the wall. There was no smell, but the strong corrosive force carried with it an intense and terrifying aura. Poison! Ryue exclaimed in a low voice, and looked at Hu Guang's eyes with a trace of nervousness. All the bones in Hu Guang's body made cracking sounds, and his movements suddenly became faster. He withdrew his left hand, and the surface of his skin emitted a faint layer of green light. His body actually directly stuck to the wall, and with a slight twist of his body, he circled around the wall 3 times like lightning. Chi-Yu and Ryue only saw a blur in front of their eyes, and Hu Guang had already returned to his seat, as if nothing had happened. Even the 5 holes on the wall that were pierced by his fingers had disappeared, and not even the liquid was left behind. Such fast movements, such a poisonous aura. Chi-Yu and Ryue looked at each other, and in their hearts, they had some understanding of Hu Guang's ability. "It's my turn." Ian looked very excited, and he suddenly jumped up from the chair. His limbs were slightly longer than the average person's, and when he jumped up from the chair, his eyes emitted a yellow light, and in an instant, he stuck to the corner of the wall. However, he clearly did not have the ability to stick to the wall like Hu Guang, so he used the force to jump up again, and began to move in the air. In the beginning, Chi-Yu could still see his figure clearly, but gradually, Ian's speed increased, and only a faint white light was left. Every time he jumped up, there would be an ear-piercing whistle. Chi-Yu had always thought that his speed was not bad, but the speed that Ian displayed was not something that he could compare with. That was an explosive speed, and at the same time, he was very patient. From the moment his body jumped up, until he returned to the dining table, his speed had always been increasing. It was hard to imagine to what extent he could reach when he used his full strength. Ian picked up his chopsticks again without a blush and said, "My ability mainly lies in speed and the variety of attacks. I have tested it with the equipment. When my speed reaches the limit, within a certain range, I can reach the speed of sound, and the attacks that use speed to bring about are very sharp." As he spoke, the sharp claws on his hands quietly disappeared, and the yellow light flashing in his eyes also returned to normal. Hu Guang asked a little anxiously, "Brothers Qi, did you find anything from us?" Chi-Yu and Ryue looked at each other, and both of them laughed. Chi-Yu said, "You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, but by chance you find it without even looking for it. Brothers, you have found the right person this time." As he spoke, his eyes suddenly lit up, and with a special tone, he slowly said, "With the blood of Kirin as the guide, I call upon you in the name of Kirin, the 12 warriors of the Zodiac who guard the East. Show your Zodiac signs." Chi-Yu raised his right hand, bit his middle finger, and gently flicked it in the air. A drop of blood floated out, and Chi-Yu made a strange hand gesture. The drop of blood suddenly floated away, and a very faint red light spread out in a circle, enveloping the entire private room. Before Hu Guang and Saiyan could react, their bodies had already changed. Both of them changed almost at the same time. A black shadow appeared behind Hu Guang, and in the shadow, there were 2 spots of green light that were extremely obvious. It was the shadow of a black snake. And behind Ian, a monkey with golden hair appeared. A pair of eyes flashed with a gem-like orange light, and every time it flashed, the energy aura became a little stronger. Even the calm Ryue could not help but be overjoyed. "Great, we finally found 2 more." Hu Guang and Ian looked at the shadows behind each other, and their eyes revealed a playful light. Hu Guang said, "Brother Qi, what is going on?" Don't you think you should explain to us? With a slight smile, Chi Yu's eyes shone brightly. Explain, of course I have to explain. Big brother Hu Guang, you were right. We are brothers, and we will be even more so in the future. We have to start from the beginning. In our Yen Huang land, a group of guardians has appeared since a long time ago. There are a total of 13 people, and 12 of them have their own zodiac signs. They all have their own zodiac signs, and the last one is the king of the zodiac, Kiran. These 13 people form the zodiac guardian. You should be aware of your situation. Big brother Ian is the monkey of this generation's zodiac guardian, and big brother Hu Guang is the snake. Zodiac guardian? But it sounds cool. Hu Guang muttered to himself, recalling his own situation. It was indeed as Chi Yu had said. His ability was indeed very similar to that of a snake, and Ian's ability was also very similar to that of a monkey. In the Sacred Flame sect, Hu Guang was mainly responsible for internal affairs, big and small, while Ian was responsible for external operations. This was because he was extremely intelligent. Ian looked at Chi Yu. What about you guys? Are you also this zodiac guardian? Chi Yu smiled slightly and said, That's right, we are. You should have heard my incantation just now. We're all on the same side. I'm the Kiran of the Zodiac Guardian, and this Hai Ryue is the Dragon of the Zodiac Guardian. Of course, she's also my wife. Ian scratched his head and stepped on the chair with one foot. He said, If being a Zodiac Guardian can also get such a beautiful wife, I don't even want to be the leader of the Sacred Flame sect anymore. Chi Yu said, Looking at both of you, you should have awakened your abilities innately. It's just that there's no real cultivation method to guide you, so you can't unleash your full abilities. How about this, you guys come back with us, and I'll ask the master to teach you the cultivation method that belongs to you. From now on, your abilities will become stronger and stronger. Hu Guang was puzzled. If we were to learn the cultivation method from you guys, would we be restricted in the future? Chi Yu was stunned. Hai Ryue said, There are no restrictions between the Zodiac Guardian warriors. We're all partners. Our mission is to protect the East, to protect the land of Yen Huang. Only when the enemy appears will we need to work together to solve the problem. At that time, you guys just don't run away. Ian smiled bitterly and said, What a loss, what a loss. I originally wanted to get a helper, but now we've become your helpers. Isn't this a loss? We even lost 10 million. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have tried to rope you in. Chi Yu laughed and said, Big brother Ian, you can't think that way. If the Sacred Flame sect encounters any trouble in the future, as long as it's a reason that we can accept, you guys won't just get a helper, but the help of all the Zodiac Guardian warriors. We're all brothers, so it's natural for us to help each other. Hu Guang's small eyes darted around. He thought to himself that this seemed like a good deal. There didn't seem to be any harm in joining the ranks of the Zodiac Guardian warriors. Moreover, he could get the help of a group of powerful Zodiac Guardian warriors. Even if there was any trouble in the future, he and Ian could just back out. He was from the underworld, so everything would naturally be done from the perspective of benefit. After some simple thinking, he exchanged a look with Ian. Both of their gazes turned lewd at the same time. Ian chuckled and said, Old Hu, what do you think? Hu Guang said, I'm fine. It's a good thing to be able to strengthen ourselves. It's up to you. Ian chuckled and said, Have you forgotten our slogan? Although I hate you, I don't want to be separated from you. Moreover, what if you become stronger and bully me? Then let's be the Zodiac Guardian warriors. Hu Guang laughed weirdly and said, I'm more cowardly than you, and you're more despicable than me. Ian chuckled and said, You're more cowardly than me, and I'm despicable. Our relationship is stronger than gold. Hu Guang's gaze became even more lewd. I'm more playful than you, and you're more despicable than me. Ian jumped to his side and put his arm around Hu Guang's shoulder. He said, You're playful and I'm despicable. What a lecherous role model. Chi-yu and Hai-ryue stared at the two wretched people in front of them in bewilderment. They really didn't know what to say. Hai-ryue thought in her heart, Chi-yu was lascivious enough in the past, but these two guys in front of her were lascivious and wretched. She really didn't know how God chose them. Why were the Zodiac Guardian Warriors so weird? Hu Guang and Ian both showed great interest in the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Chi-yu and Hai-ryue also put down their scruples. As the four of them ate, Hai-ryue briefly explained the current situation of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. She secretly calculated in her heart. So far, 9 of the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors had appeared. Only the ox, pig, and horse had not appeared. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Hu Guang smiled obscenely at Chi-yu. Brothers Chi, we still have a lot of things to deal with, so we won't go to your place today. Later, Ian and I will hand over all the things to our subordinates, and then go to see Master Zagru you mentioned. Just now, you said there was a goddess in Greece. F***ck, who cares if she's a god or not, just do it and be done with it. Ian rarely agreed with Hu Guang's opinion. That's right, Brothers Chi, if you're embarrassed, just leave it to me. I never refuse beautiful women. Even Chi-yu couldn't stand the two's naked words. After all, Hai-ryue was beside him. She's a goddess after all. When I was investigating yesterday, that purple-haired girl whose name I don't know hid her aura very well. Moreover, I was discovered even after I restrained my aura. We will solve this matter. Even if they are strong, our Zodiac Guardian Warriors are not to be trifled with. Brothers, you haven't officially started practicing the Ascending Cloud technique, so I won't trouble you with this matter. However, I hope to use the Sacred Flame Sect's intelligence network in the future. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will always be victorious. Hu Guang immediately agreed. That's easy. If you need any intelligence in the future, just call Meng Bei directly. Call Meng Bei directly. Meng Bei is our direct subordinate. He's definitely trustworthy. However, you must keep the fact that we are the Zodiac Guardian Warriors a secret. Even to our companions who are also Zodiac Guardian Warriors, I hope that you won't tell anyone about my and Ian's identities. Chi-yu smiled faintly and replied, I understand. After all, both of you are from the underworld. However, I really admire you for being able to establish such a big underworld gang like the Sacred Flame Sect at such a young age. Ian laughed. Admire my ass. The Sacred Flame Sect wasn't founded by the two of us. The Sacred Flame Sect has a history of more than 100 years. When we founded the sect, it was to defend against foreign invaders. After the establishment of the Yanhuang Republic, our Sacred Flame Sect went underground. After so many years, our intelligence network is definitely top-notch. Hu Guang and I's great-grandfather. He's the founder of the Sacred Flame Sect. It's already the 4th generation in our generation. However, the scale of the Sacred Flame Sect is too big. It has always been a family. Although the two of us are the leaders of the sect on the surface, we can't decide everything by ourselves. There are also 4 elders in the sect who came down with us. Their ancestors made great contributions to the establishment of the Sacred Flame Sect with our 2 great-grandfathers. In terms of seniority, they're 1 generation older than the 2 of us. Therefore, we need to go through the elders to make any important decisions. I think you should understand that these elders can't be of one mind with us. Therefore, we have to hide our powers. The more our opponents underestimate us, the higher our chances of survival. Chi-yu nodded and said, Then let's call it a day. Ryue and I will go back first. We'll wait for you 2 brothers tomorrow. Hu Guang and Ian didn't send Chi-yu and Hai-ryue off. Perhaps it was because they didn't want their identities to be exposed. After getting into Hai-ryue's precious sports car, Chi-yu immediately laughed out loud. Hai-ryue said, What are you laughing at? Chi-yu laughed as he said, I finally know what it means to be extremely wretched. These 2 brothers are really too strong. What do you mean by you and I'm loose? They're definitely a lascivious duo. Compared to Big Brother Sudong, they're much more direct. If Big Brother Sudong is walking the upper 3 paths, then they're walking the lower 3 paths. Once they join our camp, I'm much more confident. Compared to them, my image is still considered good. Ryua said unhappily, You can't judge a book by its cover. To be able to sit in the position of the head of such a big underworld gang, how can they be ordinary? Although these 2 guys talk lasciviously, they're very cautious when dealing with problems. I don't think they have much trust in us. They only joined our Zodiac Guardian camp out of consideration for their own interests. Chiyu hugged Ryua, leaned forward and lightly pecked her red lips, saying, This isn't something we need to worry about. Let me ask you, when we first joined the Zodiac Guardian Warrior camp, which one of us didn't have doubts? But so what? Everyone had calmly accepted their identities and responsibilities. This can be said to be the credit of Great Master Zagru. Great Master is an eminent monk who has inherited the power of Buddha for 10 generations. He's not someone ordinary people can compare to. His charisma can almost influence anyone. When Hu Guang and Ian arrive at Dragonfield Courtyard tomorrow, I think they'll also become like us. This time, we have 2 more powerful helpers. They're even older than Big Brother Guanping, and they're both innate awakened. I think as long as they practice the ascending cloud art, when they completely straighten out their thundercloud force, their power will definitely not be weak. They'll at least be at the level of 4 or 5 cloud. Ryua held Chi-Yu's big hand and said, You're very accurate. I also feel that both of them have huge energy. They just lack knowledge and effective guidance. Alright, where are we going now? Chi-Yu thought for a moment, then took out his phone and said, Jida still hasn't contacted me. I think I should contact him first. I don't know how Ming Ming is doing. While saying that, he dialed Jida's number. Master. Jida's voice sounded a bit low. Chi-Yu said, What's wrong? When will Ming Ming and that kid called Lin Yifan meet? Jida said, Master, I didn't do a good job. I've told Old Master what you mean. Although Old Master knows that what you said is very reasonable, the marriage that he agreed to at the beginning can be said to represent the country. Even Old Master doesn't dare to make a decision easily. Ming Ming went to class during the day, and Lin Yifan asked her to meet tonight. Old Master said that it's best if you don't show up tonight. Hearing this, Chi-Yu's face suddenly darkened, but he didn't say much to Jida. He just said lightly, I know it's not your fault. After saying that, he directly hung up the phone. On the other side, Jida faintly felt that something was wrong. Although he didn't see Chi-Yu's crazy look when he was fighting for Ming Ming, he still had some understanding of Chi-Yu's temper. However, he had some understanding of Chi-Yu's temper and prayed in his heart. Boss, please don't cause trouble. This is not only related to you and Ming Ming, but at the same time, it is also related to our country. What's wrong? Ryua saw that Chi-Yu didn't look too good, so she asked with concern. Chi-Yu shook his head, took out his phone and directly dialed Ming Ming's number. When Ming Ming's voice sounded on the other side of the phone, it sounded a little hoarse. Chi-Yu. Ming Ming, what's wrong with you? Did you cry? Chi-Yu asked in a low voice. You know everything, right? Ming Ming's voice suddenly became a little choked. Chi-Yu, I don't know what to do now. Yesterday, Dad and I talked for a long time, and I told him about us, but Dad said that this is related to our country's diplomacy with Greece, and we can't be careless. And how can we go back on what we have promised? But you suffered such a serious injury because of me last time, and we are sharing a heart now. How can I leave you to go to Greece? Although there is still time, even if I delay it, my 20th birthday is getting closer and closer. Listening to Ming Ming's words, Chi-Yu's eyes were already flashing with a frightening cold light. Ryua worriedly held Chi-Yu's big hand tightly, but she didn't expect Chi-Yu to suddenly laugh at this time. At least from his voice, he sounded very relaxed. Silly Ming Ming, don't cry. I said that I will protect you. No matter what difficulties there are, You still have me in front of you. It won't be that easy for that guy from Greece to take you away. Alright, be a good girl and don't worry about anything. I will naturally deal with it, okay? If it really doesn't work, I will at most go to Greece with you in the future. At first, Ming Ming was stunned. Perhaps she was affected by Chi Yu's relaxed tone, but her nerves were a little more relaxed. Chi Yu, I really don't know what to do. Then don't think about it. Focus on your lessons. I promise you, I will definitely deal with this matter. After continuing to comfort Ming Ming for a while, Chi Yu hung up the phone. Leaning against the back of the chair, he lit a cigarette for himself. Hai Ryue was a little worried. Chi Yu, are you okay? Chi Yu shook his head and said, It's nothing. I'm just thinking about what to do now. Ryue sighed and said, If Ming Ming really marries to Greece, will you really go with her? Chi Yu smiled and held Ryue's small hand tightly. That's impossible, unless I'm dead. His words were very relaxed, but there was a kind of unquestionable valiance in his words. His eyes flashed with a faint cold light. He took a deep breath of the cigarette and puffed out a round eye ring. Starting the car, Chi Yu drove the car towards Long Yu Courtyard. While driving, he said, Ryue, I will send you back first. Then I thought of Qingbei to see Ming Ming first. Just now, from the phone, I heard that she is very hesitant. I must first help her stabilize her mind. At the same time, I have to see another person. I will definitely solve Ming Ming's matter. At the same time, I will also deal with those Westerners who came to our Yan Huang land. Ryue said, Then I will go with you. Chi Yu shook his head and said, No, it's better for me to see that person by myself. Don't worry, if I go with Ming Ming to see that Lin Yifan at night, I will definitely call you. Oh right, this check is for you. While speaking, he handed the check given by Hu Guang to Ryue. Ryue giggled and said, You really have the nerve to take so much money from others. Chi Yu smiled and said, What's there to be embarrassed about? Anyway, I lack money and they are all rich people. I also saved so many of their subordinates, so I deserve it. I don't even know how to deal with the check. Anyway, you are my wife, so what's mine is yours. Deduct what I owe you from before, and treat the rest as my rent in Long Yu. Don't say you don't want it. I am a man, I can't live off a woman. Hai Ryue smiled and said, Who said I don't want it? What's yours is mine, and what's mine is still mine. Of course I want it. 10 million is not a small amount. Seeing that Chi Yu didn't seem to be affected by Ming Ming's matter, she also felt relieved. Chi Yu smiled bitterly and said, Are all women so greedy for money? You should at least give me some pocket money later. After sending Ryue back to Long Yu Courtyard, Chi Yu left the car so that Ryue could meet him at night. He drove Wen Ting's BMW out of the courtyard again and headed in the direction of Qingbei University. As for Wen Ting, Ryue didn't have the time to ask him, and it seemed that she didn't want to ask. After all, they were both Zodiac guardian warriors like Ming Ming. With their understanding of Kirin, they didn't want to restrict Chi Yu too much. This also made Chi Yu, a lascivious guy, more universal love in the near future. Although the feeling of driving a BMW was far inferior to a Lamborghini, it was still good. It was just that the BMW 3 Series was a little small for Chi Yu. In order not to attract attention, he deliberately put on a coat in the afternoon. Because it was far from the rush hour, there were relatively few cars on the road. As Chi Yu drove, he was secretly thinking about Ming Ming's matter. His thinking was very simple. He couldn't let Ming Ming marry to Greece. He couldn't even give that brat called Lin Yifan any chance to get close to Ming Ming. Chi Yu had long treated Ming Ming as his woman. For a hoodlum, if anyone touched his woman, it would be violating his taboo. When Chi Yu arrived in front of Qingbei University, it was already 3 in the afternoon. The lunch time was really not short. Looking at Qingbei's tall and simple school gate, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. A few months ago, he was still a part of it, but in the end, he left the school with expulsion. His university dream was also ruined because of this. Thinking of being expelled, he naturally thought of Su Qing. Last time, Shin Yun said that Su Qing had already left the school. I wonder how she is now? Did she leave because of guilt towards me? Why did she do this? While thinking, Chi Yu parked the car in front of Qingbei University. He locked the car door and strolled towards Qingbei. His main reason for coming to Qingbei was not for Ming Ming. He didn't explain it to Hairuyue. Actually, his main reason for coming this time was because of Shin Yun, or it could be said that it was because of Shin Yun's Soul Storm ability. Since Soul Storm has the effect of controlling other people's thoughts, why not use it? Chapter 72. Su Qing stood in front of the Qingbei gate and looked inside. From her back, she looked thinner than before. Her red down jacket looked very bright and beautiful. Her long hair was combed into a ponytail and her hands were in her pockets. She looked a little lonely. As the saying goes, enemies don't meet unless they're enemies. Since he already saw her, Chi Yu naturally wouldn't run away. He walked behind Su Qing with large strides and patted her shoulder lightly. Su Qing jumped in fright and turned around. When she saw Chi Yu, the expression on her face immediately froze. She never thought that she would meet Chi Yu here, the person she didn't want to see the most. In her eyes, Chi Yu seemed to be even taller than before. There was a bit more heroic spirit between his brows. He still had that naughty smile on his face as he looked at her with a gentle gaze. Seeing him again, Su Qing suddenly felt that Chi Yu seemed to have changed, but she couldn't tell what changed. What? Don't recognize me? Beautiful lady. Chi Yu took the initiative to greet her. Su Qing said with a bit of a stutter, why are you here? Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, Who said that you can't come back after being expelled? What's more, I'm not here to go to school. I heard from Shin Yun that you're not in Qingbei anymore. What's the point? Qingbei is such a good school, it's related to your future. Hearing Chi Yu's words, Su Qing suddenly became excited. Isn't it all because of you? If it wasn't for you, would I be able to leave? Speaking up to here, she suddenly stopped. Her face became somewhat pale. She lowered her head and silently said, Chi Yu, I'm sorry. Chi Yu lightly sighed and shook his head. Didn't I tell Shin Yun to tell you? I didn't blame you. If that matter is traced back, the responsibility should be on me. Actually, there's no need for you to leave Qingbei. I've never hated you for anything. I'm a man and you're a woman. I'm not that narrow-minded, so don't mind it too much. Su Qing raised her head and looked at Chi Yu. His voice was a little strange as he asked, Do you really not hate me? Chi Yu shrugged and said, Why should I hate you? Su Qing's eyes were slightly red as she said, But, at that time, I clearly felt that Sister Yun had a very good impression of you. I was afraid. Chi Yu chuckled. I understand. I've known about your relationship since a long time ago. That's why I said that if we trace back to the past, I'm the one to blame for this. I don't deny that I have feelings for Sister Yun. But I didn't expect you to be so extreme. Later, I thought about it carefully. From another perspective, if my woman could be snatched away by someone else, perhaps I would be more extreme than you. When he said this, he thought of the trouble that Ming Ming and Grease had caused, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly feeling the chill from Chi Yu's body, Su Qing couldn't help but tremble. She whispered, So, you already knew. Since you knew, why are you still so close to Sister Yun? Chi Yu sighed and said, I don't discriminate against homosexuals, but don't forget that I'm a normal man, and I've never denied that I'm a hooligan. Facing beautiful women like you every day, if I don't have any thoughts, then wouldn't I be impotent? This is human nature, and it can also be said that it's a man's deep-rooted bad habit. Su Qing looked at Chi Yu with tears in her eyes. When Chi Yu was fired, she realized that after this man, who she should have hated, left, she didn't become happy. Instead, she missed the life that she used to have with him. Yes, after spending so much time together, they had already entered each other's lives. It seemed that she was really wrong. When Chiyu saw that Su Qing was not speaking and saw that her face was thinner than before, he could not help but feel pity for her. "Qing'er, are you all right? Where are you working now?" Su Qing replied, "I'm at a school not far from here. I transferred there not long after you left. I don't know why, but when we were living in our original dormitory, I would feel very uncomfortable whenever I saw your door. Chiyu, thank you for forgiving me. I was wrong that time. I only wanted to scare you and teach you a lesson, but I didn't expect it to be so big. I'm really sorry." Seeing that Su Qing was about to cry, Chiyu quickly said, "All right, don't always say sorry, and don't cry. Otherwise, others will misunderstand if they see it. Of course, if others misunderstand that you want to rape me, I'm more than willing." Looking at Chiyu's somewhat comical expression, Su Qing couldn't help smiling through her tears. She lightly hit his chest and said, "You're still so hateful." Chiyu smiled and said, "You're still so cute. Don't tell me you're wearing a t-shirt or lace today." Su Qing's pretty face blushed. "You." Although she was shy, Chiyu's words also evoked memories of the autumn outing in Qingbei. Thinking of the night swim with this man in front of her, her heart couldn't help but beat a few beats. "Chiyu, are you looking for Ming Ming or Sister Yun?" Chiyu said, "If I tell you that I'm looking for both, will you be angry?" Su Qing shook her head and said sadly, "Although you've forgiven me, I can see that Sister Yun and Ming Ming treat me differently." After that incident, although Sister Yun didn't say anything, she wasn't as close to me as she used to be. It was obvious that she had distanced herself from me. I knew it was all my fault. I was really sad. They're my only friends. Chiyu comforted her. "How can that be? That day, Ming Ming told me that we'll have a meal together when we have the chance. Don't worry, Ming Ming is a broad-minded girl. She won't hate you. Oh, by the way, there's something you might not know. Ming Ming is now officially my girlfriend. Be happy for me." Su Qing was stunned for a moment and said, "Aren't you brother and sister?" Chiyu smiled and said, "I won't explain it to you. Anyway, you just need to know that Ming Ming is my girlfriend." Su Qing looked at Chiyu deeply. She couldn't understand why an outstanding girl like Ming Ming would fall for Chiyu. Chiyu could be said to be incompetent and had been expelled before he even finished his university studies. In terms of appearance, he was far inferior to Ming Ming. She didn't know how many handsome and outstanding scholars chased after her in Qingbei, but they were all rejected by her. She didn't expect that in the end, she would actually follow Chiyu. Chiyu smiled and said, "Don't you believe me? Haven't you heard that a good man doesn't have a good wife? Although I'm not very outstanding, Ming Ming has taken a fancy to a ruffian like me. You're waiting for Xin Yun here, right? Then I'll also wait here with you. Also, call Ming Ming out. I don't know what class Ming Ming has today." As he said that, he took out his phone and dialed Ming Ming's number again. "Chiyu." Ming Ming's voice sounded lighter than before. "Ming Ming, when are you done with class?" "I'm already done with class and on my way back to the dormitory. Dad might send someone to pick me up later. Then." "Chiyu, I understand. You can come out now. I'm at the Qingbei gate. If you see Xinyun, call her out too. I have something to talk to her about." "You're here?" "Chiyu, but Dad." Chiyu smiled indifferently and said, "You can come out first. I'll deal with the people sent by the old man. Believe me, leave everything to me. I'll do my best to handle it." "Okay, then wait a moment. I'll come out right away." After hanging up the phone, Chi-Yu's aura clearly became gloomy, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Su Qing looked at Chi-Yu's pondering expression. She suddenly realized that the man in front of her was really a ruffian. Just now, when he was on the phone with Ming Ming, he exuded a strong self-confidence that was definitely not something a ruffian could have. At this moment, Chi-Yu became a lot more mysterious in her heart. Not long after, Ming Ming and Xin Yun walked out together. Beside them were two tall Qingbei students. They were both very handsome and dressed appropriately. They were constantly talking to Ming Ming and Shen Yun, especially the male student standing beside Ming Ming. Not only did he have a handsome appearance, he also had broad shoulders and a strong body. His whole body exuded the vitality of youth. Su Qing asked probingly, "Don't you want to know who those two people are?" Qiyu shook his head and said, "In my heart, they're just passers-by A and passers-by B. They don't have any meaning." At this moment, Ming Ming and Shen Yun had already seen him and Su Qing. The two girls immediately quickened their step. Qiyu faintly heard Ming Ming say to the boy beside her, "Don't follow me. My boyfriend is here." Hearing this, Qiyu couldn't help but reveal a knowing smile. Ming Ming's brows seemed to have an additional faint worry. It was clear that the Greek people had caused her quite a bit of trouble. The boy beside her had a change in expression. He raised his head and looked at Qiyu. From his eyes, Qiyu saw provocation. "Ming Ming." Qiyu went forward and pulled Ming Ming's hand. He slightly nodded to Shen Yun beside her. When Shen Yun saw Qiyu, his face couldn't help but turn pale. He seemed to be somewhat afraid. Clearly, Qiyu's strength at Tianxiang Mountain's Guijian Chou had left a deep impression on him. Ming Ming didn't struggle when Qiyu held her hand. Instead, she took the initiative to pull his arm and smiled. "Let's go." Qiyu didn't even look at the boy beside her and walked towards Su Qing with Ming Ming. "Ming Ming, how can I not be compared to him? You actually chose him and not me." The tall boy's voice sounded quite pleasant. He anxiously blocked in front of Qiyu and Ming Ming. Ming Ming frowned and said, "Don't pester me anymore. I already told you I have a boyfriend. In my eyes, he is better than you in everything. You can't compare to him at all. This should be enough, right?" The boy's face became pale. He angrily pressed down on Qiyu. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire. Qiyu snorted and said, "Seeing that you are a student of Qingbei, I'll give you 3 seconds. Immediately disappear from my eyes." "What are you? Talk to me like that. If you have the ability, let's fight one-on-one." The boy was clearly not intimidated by Qiyu. He took out all the anger he felt from Ming Ming on Qiyu. Qiyu sneered and said, "One-on-one? With just you?" The other boy who followed Shen Yun said, "What, you don't dare? If you don't dare, then leave Ming Ming. Senior is the president of the judo club. Even if there were 10 of you, you wouldn't have a chance." Qiyu disdainfully glanced at him and said, "Just based on what you said, you don't have the qualifications to chase after a girl. A man and a woman are together, not because of other factors, but because of feelings. Don't tell me that if I can't beat him in a one-on-one fight, I have to give Ming Ming to him? Ming Ming is my girlfriend, not a commodity. 3 seconds are up, I'll give you one last chance." The tall boy stared at Qiyu with a burning gaze. It was clear that he had no intention of moving away. Qiyu nodded slightly. Just as he took a step forward, he discovered that Ming Ming's grip on his hand tightened. She shook her head at him. Qiyu smiled and said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. After all, there's nothing wrong with loving someone. He just shouldn't have fallen in love with my woman." As he spoke, he stretched out his left hand to push the boy in front of him. The tall boy was worthy of being the president of the judo club. When he saw Qiyu pushing towards him, he wasn't surprised. Instead, he was happy. For him, this seemed to be a good opportunity to show off. When Qiyu's hand pushed towards his chest, he crossed his hands and bit Qiyu's wrist. With one hand, he pulled Qiyu in his direction, and with the other hand, he grabbed Qiyu's elbow joint. In his mind, as long as he used this joint technique, Qiyu would immediately fall to the ground and beg for mercy. Unfortunately, his mind didn't hold up in front of Qiyu. Qiyu's hand didn't change its position. He let the tall boy grab his arm, but no matter how much strength the tall boy used, his hand still maintained its position and pushed towards the tall boy's chest. Qiyu's movements weren't fast, but when the tall boy felt his strength, he realized that he couldn't stop him. His body was pushed back step by Qiyu. He used almost all of his strength, but he still couldn't change the situation in front of him. Just as he was about to reach Suqing, Chi Yu's right hand moved to the side. The tall boy's body was suddenly thrown 7 or 8 meters away. He fell to the ground and let out a muffled groan. "You overestimate yourself," Chi Yu said indifferently. His eyes lit up at this moment because he saw a large off-road vehicle with a military plate driving towards the entrance of Qingbei University from the other end of the street. It wasn't Jida's car, but Chi Yu guessed that it must be to pick up Ming Ming. He lightly patted Ming Ming's hand and said, "Leave everything to me." When the tall boy stood up, his eyes looked a little dazed. Although Chi Yu threw him, he used a lot of force. It looked heavy, but he wasn't actually injured. The other boy saw that the judo club's president was thrown out and was immediately shocked. He hurriedly ran over to help him up. The two of them looked at each other helplessly, turned around and walked into the school. Their unrequited love on campus finally drew an imperfect end. "You're here to pick up Ming Ming, right?" Shenyun asked. When Chi Yu saw Shenyun, he couldn't help but think of the day when her father suddenly attacked him and injured Ming Ming. "I'm here to pick up Ming Ming, and I'm also looking for you for something," Shenyun said with some surprise. "Looking for me?" Chi Yu nodded and said, "I need your help." Shenyun nodded and said, "I need your help." Shenyun looked deeply at Chi Yu and said, "Then why don't you directly bring it up to my grandfather? Aren't our 4 great families already?" Her voice was very low, so Suqing couldn't hear her. Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "Because I don't trust your grandfather. Wait a moment, I'll talk to you after I take care of something." He had no choice but to stop his conversation with Shenyun because the off-road vehicle with the military plate had already arrived. The door opened and 3 people jumped out. Among the 3, Chi Yu recognized one of them. The person who came out from the passenger seat was Heavenly Soul, who was dressed in colorful clothes and looked like a little hooligan. Chi Yu didn't recognize the other 2 people. They were all tall men, but their auras were completely different. The man who came out from the driver's seat was about 1.8 meters tall and looked very stocky. His hands caught Chi Yu's attention the most. His hands were obviously full of strength, and his palms were very wide and thick. They didn't even match his 1.8 meters figure. The other man who came out from the back looked more refined. However, his aura was very cold. His entire body was like a sharp blade, and his entire body emitted a cold aura. Needless to say, these 2 were also experts among the infernal souls. "Big Brother Heavenly Soul." Chi Yu smiled and greeted him. Heavenly Soul looked at Chi Yu with a helpless expression. "The old man guessed that you would be here, so he asked us to pick up Ming Ming. We're all brothers. Don't make things difficult for us, okay?" Chi Yu smiled and said, "Why would I make things difficult for you, Big Brother Heavenly Soul? Aren't you here to pick up Ming Ming? Just bring me along. I haven't been to the old man's place for some time. Let's take a look at him, shall we?" Heavenly Soul looked at Chi Yu's flawless smile and said, "Are you really just going to see the old man? Chi Yu, don't make things difficult for me as your brother. I've heard about you and Ming Ming from the mechanical soul. Everything is for the benefit of the country. You're still young. Why should a man worry about not having a wife?" Upon hearing this, Chi Yu's expression changed. "Big Brother Heavenly Soul, I've always treated you as my brother. Don't you think that this is a little too much? If it were you and your wife wanted to marry a Westerner for the benefit of the country, would you do it?" This Heavenly Soul was speechless. "That's right. If this happened to me, how would I handle it?" The other 2 men who came with Heavenly Soul were seeing Chi Yu for the first time. The man who got out of the driver's seat said, "Get out of the way, don't get in our way." He was very unhappy with Chi Yu's impolite questioning of Heavenly Soul and raised his hand to grab Chi Yu's shoulder. Chi Yu naturally knew that those who came with Heavenly Soul were definitely not people that the guy from the judo club could compare to. He snorted coldly, shook his shoulder, and changed his position. Big brother Heavenly Soul, if you don't want your companions to get hurt, make them behave. Heavenly Soul frowned slightly and said to the man, Stop. Why are you still so rash? Chi-Yu, let me introduce you. This is the Earth Soul, and the other is the Blade Soul. They are both in charge of fighting in our Yen Huang Soul. They originally belonged to the Earth Soul team. My brothers went out to carry out missions, so I captured them at the last minute. Together, we will protect Ming Ming's safety. Chi-Yu said calmly, Protect Ming Ming? Then the person you should be guarding against should be me. Big brother Heavenly Soul, I won't make things difficult for you. You have two choices now. One is for you to bring me and Ming Ming back. The other is for the three of you to defeat me and bring Ming Ming away. But I have to remind you that fists and legs have no eyes. If I don't control my strength, please apologize in advance. So what if it was the Yen Huang Soul? No one could take Ming Ming away from me. Chi-Yu already had this thought in his heart. He decided that before Lin Yifan's matter was resolved, he would not let Ming Ming leave his side. Heavenly Soul looked helplessly at Chi-Yu and said, Brother, is there no third way? Isn't this making things difficult for me? Chi-Yu shook his head and said, I'm sorry, Big Brother Heavenly Soul. I have always respected the old master. But this matter concerns my future happiness. How can I give up? I will definitely consider the interests of the country, but I have my own way of dealing with this. I will not let Ming Ming go. I'm not going with you to destroy anything. I just want to accompany Ming Ming to see that guy. Heavenly Soul looked deeply at Chi-Yu and said, From a man's point of view, I admire you. Indeed, as a man, he should protect his loved ones. But from a man's point of view, I have no choice but to bring Ming Ming with me. The old master knew that you would appear here, so he sent the three of us. The old master said that besides Ming Ming, we can agree to any other request of yours. Chi-Yu smiled. No request can compare to Ming Ming's position in my heart. Ming Ming had been standing behind Chi-Yu the whole time. When she heard what he said, her gaze turned gentle. She did not know why, but she was suddenly not worried about the matter between her and the Greek side. The man standing in front of her gave her a strong sense of security. Just like what he said, she would leave everything to him. Earth Soul could not hold it in any longer. Captain Heavenly Soul, it's more important to complete the mission. Let's not waste any more time. As he spoke, Blade Soul had unknowingly appeared on the other side of Tianhun. The three of them formed a triangle around Chi-Yu. At this moment, a soft voice was suddenly heard. Even if it's the military, they can't fight in front of our Qingbei University. Su Dong smiled as he walked out of Qingbei University. As a teacher, he wore a neat suit and looked refined. He looked like a typical pretty boy. As he spoke, Su Dong had already walked to Chi-Yu's side. He completely blocked Ming Ming behind him. Why? Team leader Heavenly Soul, are you bullying us? Our boss is not that easy to bully. When Heavenly Soul saw Su Dong, his expression changed. Previously, he had been able to complete the mission successfully because Su Dong and Hai Ryue had arrived in time. Although he only had a rough understanding of Su Dong's strength, he knew that this sissy in front of him was not easy to deal with. It was not a coincidence that Su Dong had appeared in time. After Chi-Yu left the villa, Hai Ryue was worried and immediately called him. That was why he could appear in front of Qingbei University so quickly. Just as Heavenly Soul was hesitating, a cold voice came from Sword Soul. Do you know the consequences of stopping us from completing the mission? Su Dong smiled and said, I don't know, but I really want to know. He was born in the Su family of Jiangsu. Although he looked weak, he was fearless. Even his grandfather could not control him. Although he knew that Yen Huang's soul was extraordinary, he was not worried at all. However, he wasn't worried at all. He didn't believe that the country would fall out with the Eastern Guardians. A cold light flashed in Sword Soul's eyes and his entire body became sharper. 3 cold lights shot towards Shu Dong without warning. Sword Soul only had one ability. No matter what it was, it could be used as a sword. Although the 3 sharp cold lights were only 3 strands of hair, their penetrative power was not to be underestimated. After all, this was the main street. He could only use this method of attack to not attract attention. Sword Soul's attack was not that simple. After the 3 cold lights, another 5 cold lights shot towards Chi-Yu. After that, more than 10 cold lights completely enveloped the 2 of them. Although the 3 waves of attacks came one after another, they were all completed before the first wave arrived. This interval in between was where the power of the attacks manifested. A layered attack was much more difficult to resist than a single wave of attack. Naturally, Chi-Yu and Su Dong would not care about such an attack. Just as the 2 of them were about to make a move, a layer of phantoms suddenly burst out from the gap between them. It seemed to be a barrier formed by countless hands. The hand shadows covered a very wide area. In an instant, the nearly 20 cold lights were completely swallowed by the hand shadows. Not only was Sword Soul stunned, but even Chi-Yu and Su Dong were equally surprised. When the barrier-like hand shadows disappeared, a short and fat figure squeezed out from the gap between them and stood between them. Fatso's face still looked a little childish. He was dressed in a student's uniform and carried a huge school bag on his shoulder. His left hand was holding the bag strap, and his right hand was deep in front of him, holding a handful of hair. He curled his lips and said, "Damn, who's so blind to even dare to attack my boss?" This Fatso, whose body was almost the width of one side, was none other than Chi-Yu's little brother, Vol. This was the first time Chi-Yu had seen Vol display his ability. Although the Sword Soul's attack just now could not pose a threat to him, he could tell from the sound of the light breaking through the air that it was full of energy. However, Vol seemed to have used only one hand to block all the attacks. Even Chi-Yu and Su Dong had to admit that the dexterity of his hands was inferior. Just like how a rabbit's ability was its legs, a mouse's ability was its hands. As the saying went, a mouse was born to burrow. What did it rely on to burrow? Wasn't it just grabbing forward? Although Vol's hands were still as short and thick as before, his fingers had already changed greatly under the effect of the thundercloud force of the ascending mouse mantra. Chi-Yu looked at the surprised faces of the Sky Soul trio and smiled. "Come, let me introduce you. This is my brother, Vol." The Sky Soul smiled bitterly. "It seems that you came prepared today." One Chi-Yu was enough to give him a headache, and now there were 2 more who were obviously not weak. Although the Sky Soul was confident that all the Yellow Flame Souls were top experts, they seemed weak in front of the 3 people in front of him. "Vol, didn't I tell you not to swear? You're a student." A slender figure appeared behind the Vol. From her pair of long legs that were far from ordinary people's, one could see that she was not comparable. The Sky Soul's pupils shrank. He thought to himself, this is not the end. How many experts did Chi-Yu bring? When Vol saw Modi, it was not like a mouse meeting a rabbit, but like a mouse meeting a cat. He quickly agreed and gave up his position to Modi. "Captain Sky Soul, although I also belong to the national system, I may not be able to help you today. I'm really sorry. Ming Ming is one of us. No matter what, we can't let her marry to the West. Chi-Yu Ming Ming, Big Brother Guan supports you." A black Audi stopped next to the Sky Soul's off-road vehicle. Guan Ping poked his head out. He was even wearing his white work coat. It was obvious that he had rushed here. Looking at the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors, Ming Ming's eyes became moist. The Sky Soul's eyes were also moist. However, Ming Ming was moved, while the Sky Soul was so depressed that he was about to cry. He was now sure that he could not take Ming Ming away from these people. Chi-Yu wanted to sing. He wanted to sing a very old song, Unity is Strength. Chapter 73. It's so lively. Looks like I'm late. Yan Xiaoi ran out of Qingbei campus. Ryue didn't inform him and Vol. Vol followed Modi, and Yan Xiaoi just got out of school. Other than the dragon and the two newly discovered leaders of the Sacred Flame sect, the rest of the Zodiac guardian gods rushed over in time. Chi-Yu patted Little Yi's shoulder and said in a low voice, "Little Yi, you and Vol can go back first. You don't have to worry about the things here." Vol said, "Boss, how can we do that? We're also part of the Zodiac guardian gods. Protecting Ming Ming is also our responsibility." Yan Xiaoi chuckled and said, "That's right. Recently, under the guidance of the Master, my strength is only at 2 clouds. The Master said that I'm talented and smart, much better than a certain fat rat." Vol stared at him and said, "Damn, will you die if you don't brag? You're better than me? Why don't we compete in drawing some other day?" Su Dong laughed and said, "Compete in what? Who's the worst at drawing? All right, we're all brothers, so don't quarrel. Listen to Chi-Yu and go back first. We don't need to bring many people with us later, and it's not like we're really going to fight. Even if we're going to fight, it'll be boss alone. We're just going to prevent them from ganging up on us." Vol said dejectedly, "Sigh, it's all because I'm too stupid. I haven't broken through to 2 clouds yet, so I can't help you." Little E hugged Vol's broad shoulders and said, "All right, aren't I the same? Do you think we're all as abnormal as boss? We've jumped up in an instant. Let's go. If we have time to waste here, we might as well spend it on training at home. Let's go back to our homes. Boss, remember to let us know if there's any good news." As he spoke, he half forced himself to hug Vol's shoulders and walked away. Before leaving, Vol looked at Modi reluctantly and whispered something. Everyone present was an outstanding expert. Although Vol's voice was very low, they could still hear Vol telling Modi to be careful. Chi-Yu sighed in his heart. From the outside, the gap between Vol and Modi was too big. No wonder Modi found it hard to accept him. He had been busy with his own matters these days. After dealing with Ming Ming's problem, it was time to worry about the Vol. He had to find out how Modi felt about the Vol. If there was no chance at all, he might as well persuade the Vol to give up. One side was sinking deeper and deeper, unable to extricate oneself in the future. Just as Chi-Yu was deep in thought, Tianhun had already returned and looked helplessly at Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu looked back at him and revealed a faint smile, one filled with determination. There was determination in the smile. "Chi-Yu, let's go together. The old man said that you should all go. However, the old man wants you to identify yourselves as Ming Ming's friends." Chi-Yu smiled. "I am Ming Ming's boyfriend, so there's no such thing as a position. Where will I meet with Lin Yifan? The old man won't go in person, will he?" Tianhun shook his head. "Of course the old man won't go. But Jida will accompany those people. Will all of you go?" Chi-Yu smiled. Before he could speak, Guan Ping, who got off the Audi car, said, "Of course all of us will go. We want to see who actually wants to marry our Ming Ming to the West." Tianhun smiled bitterly. "You really know how to make trouble for me. Then come with us. Our car will lead the way. Which one of you wants to ride with us?" Chi-Yu replied, "No need. 2 cars are enough for the few of us. Brother Tianhun, it's hard for you this time. Wait a moment. I want to talk to my friends, and then we'll go." He let go of Ming Ming's hand, turned around, and walked to Xin Yun and Su Qing. Xin Yun looked at Chi-Yu, and then looked at the other Zodiac guardians with him. "Is there anything else?" Chi-Yu said, "Sister Yun, I need your help." Xin Yun said, "Tell me. You spared my father last time. No matter what you want me to do, I'll promise you." Chi-Yu faintly smiled. "It shouldn't be anything difficult for you. I'm pressed for time, so I won't talk to you for now. Since you've agreed, I'll give you a call after I'm done." Xin Yun nodded and said, "Okay. I'll wait for your call." "Chi-Yu." She called out to Chi-Yu, but when she looked at Ming Ming beside him, she held back from saying what she wanted to say. She lowered her head and said, "You can go." Chi-Yu didn't ask. He had vaguely guessed what Xin Yun wanted to say to him. At this time, he knew that he couldn't ask. He glanced at Xin Yun and Su Qing, then turned around and signaled to Tianhun that they could go. Tianhun sighed and turned towards the off-road vehicle. The Knife Soul and Earth Soul's gazes froze on Chi-Yu for a moment before following Tianhun. Modi and Sudong got into Guan Ping's car, while Chi-Yu pulled Ming Ming into the BMW. The three cars left Qinbei University in a single file. It wasn't until the three cars turned a corner and disappeared from sight that Su Qing let out a long sigh. Her whole body seemed to relax. Xin Yun asked with concern, "Qing-er, what's wrong?" Su Qing said, "Sister Yun, who were those people just now? Why is Chi-Yu with them? It seems that some of them are Chi-Yu's subordinate." Xin Yun's eyes revealed a trace of bitterness. He said, "There are some things that you're better off not knowing. I can only tell you that Chi-Yu isn't like what you've seen him before." Su Qing nodded and said, "I feel it too. When I see him again, he's obviously different from before. He wasn't as bad as he used to be. Previously, he seemed to release everything outwards, but this time, he seemed to retract everything inwardly. I didn't know why, but I had a strange feeling when I saw him. He really didn't blame me, but after I saw him, I felt even more guilty." Xin Yun held Su Qing's hand. "All right, Qing-er, don't think too much about it. Let's go as well." Tianhun did not say where they would meet. Therefore, Chi-Yu and Guan Ping could only drive behind the off-road vehicle. The speed of the Earth Spirit was very fast. Fortunately, Chi-Yu and Guan Ping's skills were good, so they could follow behind. Gradually, Chi-Yu could guess the destination of this trip. Last night, he had walked the same path. Yes, he was really a little confused. Wasn't the Hilton Hotel a very good place to meet? Ming Ming was accompanied by Jida to meet Lin Yifan. The appearance of the few of them was just a variable. The situation now was very delicate. In a sense, they could be said to be opposed to the three from Greece, and the Yellow Flame Soul in the mainland, including Jida, had the task of coordinating. Chi-Yu handed the phone to Ming Ming and asked her to tell Hai Ryue the destination of this trip. As expected, Chi-Yu's guess was very correct. Tianhuan's car drove directly to the Hilton Hotel before stopping. Soa Soa had already seen Chi-Yu yesterday, but Chi-Yu was not afraid of being recognized by her. So what if she knew? Anyway, he had no intention of settling things peacefully with these Greeks. Tianhun got out of the off-road vehicle and quickly walked to Chi-Yu, who also got out of the car. He lowered his voice and said, "Brother, I know that Ming Ming is very important to you, but I have to remind you again. Don't be impulsive later. We represent the country, not you personally. Do you understand?" Chi-Yu smiled faintly and said, "Big brother Tianhun, don't worry. Even if we have a falling out, we won't be here." Tianhuan's gaze fell on Chi-Yu's hand that was holding Ming Ming's. Chi-Yu naturally understood what he meant, but he had no intention of letting go. He pretended not to understand and said, "Let's go, big brother Tianhun. We should go in too." Tianhun smiled bitterly and said, "Brother, I'm begging you. If you go in like this, it will be very difficult for me." Ming Ming also looked at Chi-Yu and said, "Forget it. Other people are making things difficult for big brother Tianhun, and I won't fly away." Chi-Yu glanced at Ming Ming, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He still held Ming Ming's hand domineeringly and said, "I want to hold your hand and make that kid from Greece give up. Big brother Tianhun, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but I have my own principles." As he spoke, he held Ming Ming's hand and walked into the restaurant. Chi-Yu had only taken a few steps when two figures were already in front of him. They were the Earth Soul and the Blade Soul. Chi-Yu had long disliked these two people. He shouted in a low voice, "Get out of the way." He held Ming Ming with his left hand and stretched out his right hand. An invisible energy, like a wall, covered the two people in front of him. Both the Blade Soul and the Earth Soul were strong fighters among the Yen Huang souls. Seeing that Chi-Yu was pushing his palm towards them, the two naturally did not want to be outdone. The Earth Soul took a step forward and stretched out his right hand to block Chi-Yu's right palm. Chi-Yu snorted disdainfully. From his right index finger, a ball of green light appeared. The light flashed, and with a low whistle in the air, it directly attacked the Earth Soul's hand. The Earth Soul's ability was to control all Earth attribute energy molecules. His own defense was extremely amazing. He did not think that Chi-Yu's seemingly simple attack could cause any harm to him. The momentum of his right palm did not change, and a ball of yellow light had already appeared in his palm. Of course, the Blade Soul was not idle. 4 silver lights shot out from his body at the same time. Even Chi-Yu did not see clearly what the 4 lights were. However, the middle finger of his right hand immediately reacted. A ball of faint blue light floated out. The light scattered in the air, forming an invisible layer of water barrier, and directly shrouded the Earth Soul. The first to come into contact with Chi-Yu's attack was the Earth Soul. When the green light touched his palm, he could not help but let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. His left hand clenched his right hand tightly, and a painful expression appeared on his face. In fact, the Earth Soul itself was not so fragile, but in front of the Hilton Hotel, he could not exert his strength at all. Otherwise, if he made a few earth spikes, he was afraid that ordinary people would immediately be frightened. What Chi-Yu shot at him was a wind blade. Wind naturally had a restraining effect on Earth. With the cutting force of the wind, Chi-Yu directly broke the defense on his palm. The extremely strong wind energy rushed into his body and raged in the meridians in his palm. The Earth Soul was fully urging its ability to compete with this wind energy. The situation of the Blade Soul was worse than that of the Earth Soul. Chi-Yu's water thundercloud force was 1 cloud stronger than the wind thundercloud force. Although the energy did not seem very strong, the barrier formed was very tough. The 4 silver lights were 4 ordinary thumbtack. Under the reverse sweep of the water curtain, they were immediately swallowed, and at the same time, the water curtain also shrouded the body of the Blade Soul. Then, a barely visible faint purple light spread out from under Chi-Yu's feet and approached the body of the Blade Soul in an instant. Non-pure water was conductive. Although Chi-Yu's water thundercloud force was pure from an energy point of view, its essence was contaminated with the characteristics of several other kinds of thundercloud force. As soon as the thundercloud force appeared, it was naturally and easily transmitted to every part of the Blade Soul's body. The Blade Soul did not even make a sound. Its whole body had become completely stiff, and its hair was standing on end. Even its eyes had become dull. The posture of Chi-Yu's outstretched right hand did not change. He still pushed it out. The retreating Earth Soul had already dodged to the side, and the Blade Soul was also pushed to the side by his palm. He strode into the lobby of the Hilton Hotel with Ming Ming. Chi-Yu had only exchanged blows with the 2 souls for a short moment. The Heavenly Soul, who had originally wanted to step forward to help, forcibly suppressed the surging energy in his body. With 6 sharp gazes focused on him, it was likely that no one would dare to act blindly without thinking. Furthermore, the strength that Chi-Yu had displayed was sufficiently shocking. Tianhun had no choice but to spread his hands and put on a harmless look. Guan Ping, Modi, and Su Dong stepped forward. The 3 of them followed behind Chi-Yu and Ming Ming into the Hilton Hotel with the 3 souls. Chi-Yu stood in the middle of the lobby. His Kirin aura quickly spread to every corner of the first floor. Soon, he found the target he was looking for. His eyes flashed, and he looked at the cafe on the left of the lobby. Chi-Yu saw a pair of purple eyes. Even though this was the second time he had seen them, he could not help but be attracted by the perfect face. His eyes glazed for a moment before returning to normal. The perfect purple-haired woman, who might have inherited the goddess Athena's divinity, and Soso, who had long dark red hair, were both sitting in the cafe. Opposite them was a man in a suit. As his back was facing Chi-Yu, he could not see his face clearly. Noticing Chi-Yu's gaze, the purple-haired woman was also stunned for a moment. There was a trace of surprise in her beautiful eyes. Soso, who was next to her, immediately noticed Chi-Yu and also looked over. However, her gaze was not as gentle as the purple-haired woman's. It was still full of charm, and there was a hint of provocation in it. The two women's attire was the same as when Chi-Yu saw them last night. However, the purple-haired beauty's long hair was now draped over her shoulders, adding a touch of tenderness. 3 souls, Guan Ping, and the other Zodiac guardian gods also walked in at this time. They were not ordinary people, and immediately noticed the gazes of Chi-Yu and the purple-haired beauty. Su Dong's eyes immediately widened. Although he had seen many beautiful women, like Chi-Yu, it was the first time he had seen a girl as perfect as the purple-haired beauty. For a moment, he could not help but feel his mouth go dry. Guan Ping was a little better than him, but he was also stunned for a moment before returning to normal. Ming Ming said in a low voice, "Chi-Yu, is that them?" Chi-Yu nodded gently and said, "Yes, the man sitting with his back facing us should be Lin Yifan." At this time, Lin Yifan also noticed that there was something wrong with the gazes of the two beauties in front of him, so he turned his head and looked outside. Seeing his appearance, Chi-Yu could not help but frown. Lin Yifan and Chi-Yu were completely different type. Lin Yifan's skin looked very fair, and he wore a pair of black-framed, thin-edged glasses. He seemed to be a little older than Chi-Yu. His fitted suit, handsome face, and faint scholarly aura easily gave people a good impression. Lin Yifan did not notice Chi-Yu. He saw Ming Ming at a glance. Although a few years had passed, he still recognized her at once. He quickly stood up from his seat, whispered something to the purple-haired woman and So-So, and walked out of the cafe. There was only a partition between the hotel's cafe and the lobby. When Chi-Yu saw them coming, he also took Ming Ming's hand and greeted them. At this time, Jida's tall figure appeared. When he saw Lin Yifan and Chi-Yu gradually approaching, he quickly took a few steps forward and stood in the middle of the two of them. "Let me introduce you." Jida was very nervous at this time. He did not expect Chi-Yu to arrive with Ming Ming while he was in the washroom. Especially when he saw Chi-Yu holding Ming Ming's hand, his eyes could not help but freeze. He smiled bitterly in his heart. "Master, oh master, you can come if you want, but you don't have to be so overbearing. Ming Ming, you've met before. This is Mr. Lin from Greece. Mr. Lin, do you still recognize my sister? Oh, this is my master Chi-Yu. He came with my sister. Also, this is written as our friend." Lin Yifan looked at Chi-Yu and nodded at him in a friendly manner. Chi-Yu kept looking at him. He realized that although Lin Yifan was smiling at him, when he saw him holding Ming Ming's hand from the corner of his eyes, his pupils still contracted slightly. Lin Yifan smiled and said, "Ming Ming, long time no see. There's an old saying in Yanhuang, a girl changes 18 times before reaching womanhood. You've become even more beautiful than before, like a bright pearl, dazzling and moving." Ming Ming smiled lightly and said politely, "Thank you." Lin Yifan saw that Ming Ming was ignoring him, and then looked at Chi-Yu's expressionless face. He could more or less guess what was going on. He smiled slightly and said, "Let's go sit in the cafe." After that, he first made a gesture and then walked to the cafe. Chi-Yu frowned slightly. This Lin Yifan, at least on the surface, did not look annoying. Although he had a noble temperament, he did not have the domineering and arrogant attitude of a powerful person. It was easy to give people a good impression. When everyone walked into the cafe, Guan Ping, Modi, and Su Dong all sat down at the table next to them. Su Dong's eyes never left the purple-haired woman, and he silently muttered something. The 3 souls sat on the other side. The earth soul's complexion was better, but the knife soul's body still looked a little stiff. Obviously, he had not recovered from Chi-Yu's attack just now. Chi-Yu had a good sense of propriety, but in less than an hour, he was afraid that he would only be able to maintain his current state. So-So looked at Chi-Yu and said with a charming smile, "This gentleman looks so familiar. Didn't we meet yesterday?" Chi-Yu pretended to be surprised and said, "Met? Did we? How come I don't remember? Soasaw glanced at Chi Yu's right hand and said to Lin Yifan, Yifan, it seems that your visit to see your fiancée this time was not so smooth. Look, she doesn't seem to remember you anymore. Soasaw. The purple-haired woman called her plainly. The charming smile on Soasaw's face faded a little, but her eyes were still on Chi Yu, as if she wanted to see through everything in his heart. Chi Yu knew that she had suspicions because of his figure. When the two of them were fighting yesterday, it was easy for the other party to recognize the aura they emitted. Lin Yifan said to Ming Ming, Miss Ming Ming, we haven't seen each other for a few years. How are you? I arrived at the capital of the Yenwang Republic yesterday morning and just went to visit Uncle. Uncle said that you are now studying at university. Ming Ming nodded and said, Yes. Aren't you going to introduce me to these two sisters? Lin Yifan slapped her forehead and said with a smile, Look at me, I was so happy to see you that I forgot my manners. This is Miss Yamu, and this is Miss Soasu. They are both researchers in the history of our country. This time, they came with me to the Yenwang Republic because they are very interested in your country's ancient civilization. I wonder what is the relationship between Mr. Qi and Ming Ming? Yamu? Qi Yu's eyes fell on the purple-haired woman's perfect face. This name sounded a little sad. He looked at Yamu and calmly replied to Lin Yifan's question, I am Ming Ming's boyfriend. Lin Yifan's expression changed slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Yamu's eyes, which were originally lowered, also looked up at Qi Yu. Her big eyes, which seemed to be able to speak, revealed a gentle light. Qi Yu seemed to see his own body's reflection in her clear eyes. Qi Yu, Ming Ming, and the three Greek guests opposite them. The five of them quieted down. Even the two tables next to them were silent. The atmosphere suddenly became a little heavier. The Tianhun at the other table frowned deeply. Although he knew that Qi Yu did not intend to be kind today, he did not expect him to be so direct and not leave any face for the other party. The smile on Lin Yifan's face disappeared. She looked at Qi Yu and said, I wonder if Mr. Qi knows that Miss Ji and I have been engaged for a long time. Qi Yu chuckled and said, So what? After all, Ming Ming has not married you yet. Lin Yifan said calmly, It is Yifan's honor that Mr. Qi admires my fiancée so much. Qi Yu was stunned. He thought to himself, this Westerner's way of thinking is indeed very different from the East. If I were Lin Yifan, I would probably have already slammed the table and stood up. At this moment, Yamu opened her mouth. Based on my understanding of the Yenwang Republic, your country has always been a country that upholds promises. There is rarely a precedent of changing a promise that has already been made. Qi Yu smiled slightly and said, That's right. You are right. We, the descendants of Yenwang, value promises very much. However, from Ming Ming's point of view, when the engagement was first made, it was mostly her family's idea. At that time, Ming Ming was still young and was still a minor. Her mind was not mature. Moreover, she did not personally promise anything. Taking a step back, even if Ming Ming promised something, from my point of view, it is only between Ming Ming and Lin Yifan. It has nothing to do with me. I have also promised Ming Ming that I will love her for the rest of my life. It is also a promise and it seems to be equivalent. Yamu was stunned for a moment and said, Mr. Qi, are you twisting words and forcing logic? Qi Yu shrugged and said, Whatever you think. I am not a cultured person, so you don't have to use logic to pressure me. Haven't you heard of this saying in our Yenwang country? When a scholar meets a soldier, he cannot be reasoned with. No matter what you think, in my understanding, Mr. Lin and I should stand on the same level. If that is the case, and not considering other factors, it seems that we should let Ming Ming choose her partner herself. Unexpectedly, Lin Yifan actually nodded and said, Mr. Qi's words make sense. Regardless of whether it is in the west or the east of your country, we all pay attention to the freedom of marriage. I have always been against political marriages and marriages based on benefit. In the past, there were people who chose to fight for a wife. To me, it was laughable. If the woman does not like it, what is the point of the duel? Chi-yu looked at Lin Yifan with a little surprise and said, "So you agree to let Ming Ming choose?" Although Lin Yifan's words were very beautiful, Chi-yu felt a little uneasy in his heart. Lin Yifan smiled and said, "Of course I agree. Mr. Chi and I both like Miss Ji very much. If that is the case, of course we will follow Miss Ji's choice." But, at this point, he suddenly changed the topic and looked at Ming Ming earnestly. He said, "Miss Ji, I feel that it is a little unfair for me to let you choose now. After all, we have not seen each other for a long time. You have spent much more time with Mr. Chi than I have. This means that you can only see Mr. Chi's good points and are not familiar with me. I think, before you make your choice, can you give me a chance?" Ming Ming was a little curious and asked, "What chance?" Lin Yifan said sincerely, "I want to invite Miss Ming Ming to Greece for some time. We can also get to know each other. Greece's beautiful Aegean Sea, the birthplace of the Olympic Games, are all tourist attractions in the West. I think I will definitely let Miss Ming Ming have a good time. And if Miss Ming Ming wants to make a decision, please do it after this trip. What do you think? I think this is more fair for me and Mr. Chi." After Lin Yifan finished speaking, even Guan Ping, who also had a PhD, could not help but secretly admire him. This kind of retreat in order to advance, not only would it not make Ming Ming feel disgusted, but it also showed that he was magnanimous. But fundamentally speaking, if Ming Ming was willing to travel to Greece with him, there would naturally be a lot of variables. But now, if Chi-yu immediately objected, he would immediately be overwhelmed by the other party in terms of momentum. Chi-yu did not say anything, but just turned his head to look at Ming Ming. Ming Ming was also looking at him. She shook her head almost without hesitation and said, "Mr. Lin, thank you for your kindness, but I don't think it's necessary. I can't leave Chi-yu." Chi-yu was secretly happy in his heart. The foreshadowing he had laid before had played a very important role at this moment. Yes, Lin Yifan did use his intelligence to gain the upper hand in words, but he did not know that Ming Ming's cognition could not leave a certain range. With Ming Ming's feelings for him, she naturally would not joke around with her life. Lin Yifan sighed softly and said with a bitter smile, "It seems that my chance is really slim. I didn't expect Mr. Chi to be so attractive. But I believe Miss Ji also knows that our engagement was set by my father and your father. Although I don't agree with political marriages, my father is the president of Greece. If I rashly cancel our engagement, I'm afraid he will find it hard to accept. If Miss Ming Ming is willing to give me this chance, even if you insist on canceling the engagement in the future, I can explain to my father that I'm just not charming enough. I believe my father will understand at that time." Ming Ming's eyes flickered as she said, "You mean that if I'm willing to go to Greece with you for a period of time, you'll agree to cancel the engagement?" Lin Yifan smiled and said, "I'm not a clingy person. If Miss Ming Ming really refuses to accept me at that time, I will cancel the engagement. Miss Ming Ming, please give me this chance. How about it?" Chi-yu's heart trembled, but he still did not say anything. He was confident in Ming Ming. Nodding her head, Ming Ming replied, "All right, I can go with you to Greece. But I have two requests. As long as it's within my means, I will definitely try my best to fulfill your request." Lin Yifan made a gesture. "Of course you can do it. Firstly, I hope to set a specific time for this trip. I can't stay in Greece forever, I still have to complete my studies." Ming Ming smiled. "That's simple. According to your country's school system, you should be on your winter break soon. Let's set this trip as your winter break. I believe that it won't be too long, and it won't affect your studies." Nodding her head, Ming Ming replied, "That's a reasonable arrangement. Furthermore, I have another request. I hope that Chi-yu can accompany me on this trip." "What? Little girl, don't go too far. We Greeks aren't that easy to bully." Suo snorted in annoyance. Although she still maintained a seductive look on her face, her eyes had already turned cold. Chapter 74. For some reason, Soso, who was very arrogant even in front of Chiyu, turned pale the moment she sensed the aura emanating from Ming Ming. Her shoulders trembled and her lips trembled, as if she couldn't speak. Lin Yifan looked at Ming Ming in surprise and said, "Miss Ming Ming, please don't make things difficult for me, okay? If you want to bring Mr. Qi with you to Greece, then this opportunity is as good as none for me." Chiyu finally opened his mouth, a playful smile on his face as he said, "A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. I think you should be able to tell that Ming Ming and I are not ordinary people. Because we practice a special Eastern technique, our auras are connected. Once we are separated by a certain distance, it will cause great damage. Therefore, it is impossible for Ming Ming and I to separate. Mr. Lin, I think there are many beauties in Greece, so why are you wasting your time here?" No matter how smart Lin Yifan was, he didn't expect that this would be the result of his words. His expression was already very ugly. When he first met Ming Ming, he was shocked. At the same time, due to political reasons, he readily agreed to the marriage. After a few years, when he met Ming Ming again, he was immediately attracted by Ming Ming's temperament. Although Ming Ming wasn't as perfect as Yamu, her beauty was even better than Soso's. However, her beauty was even greater than Suasua's. She was definitely a typical top-notch Oriental beauty. In his heart, Yamu was sacred and inviolable, and Soso was something he didn't even dare to think about. If he could have an outstanding wife like Ming Ming, he would be very satisfied. Therefore, from the moment they met, he had been thinking of all kinds of ways to increase Ming Ming's impression of him so that he could smoothly carry out the marriage. However, Ming Ming's heart was obviously not on him. She seemed to have a deep relationship with Chiyu, who was not outstanding at all. He didn't stand a chance at all. He was unwilling to be outdone by Chiyu. "All right, I'll agree to Miss G's request on behalf of Yifan. I'll invite Mr. Qi and Miss G to come to Greece together," Yamu suddenly said in the awkward atmosphere. Chiyu and Lin Yifan were both surprised. "Mississippi," Lin Yifan called out anxiously. Yamu raised her hand to stop him from continuing. He smiled faintly and said, "However, Mr. Qi, Miss G, Yifan has already taken a step back many times. Can you please take a step back as well?" Chiyu looked at Yamu. He didn't know why, but when he saw her clear purple eyes, his heart was unconsciously attracted to them. Ming Ming said, "In what way do you want us to take a step back?" Yamu smiled. Her smile was very gentle and didn't show her teeth. It wasn't a noble aura, but it gave off a very warm feeling. "Let's go to Greece together. I hope that Miss Ming Ming and Mr. Qi won't travel together. Yifan will accompany Miss Ming Ming on the trip, and I'll accompany Mr. Qi." "Mississippi, this time," Lin Yifan and Sophos exclaimed at the same time. They didn't expect Yamu to make such a decision. No. Ming Ming didn't even think about it and immediately rejected. Every girl would inevitably develop a mentality of comparison and hostility when they saw a beauty who was more outstanding than them. Ming Ming was no exception. Other than Hairue, this was the first time she felt that there was a woman who surpassed her in all aspects. The Yamu in front of her was superior to her in both looks and temperament. What if something happened if she and Chiyu were together? "Miss G, please listen to me." Yamu's emotions didn't change at all because of Ming Ming's rejection. She also stopped Lin Yifan and Sophos with her hand. "First of all, I promised the two of you to go to Greece with us. Naturally, we can solve the problem that Mr. Chiyu mentioned. At the same time, I guarantee on my honor that your safety in Greece won't be a problem. Also, I promise that you can see each other once a day. This is already the biggest concession we can make. After the trip, if everything is as it is now, I can represent Yifan to cancel the engagement between the two of you. I can also guarantee that he won't harass you in the future. After listening to Rain Eyes' words, he clearly felt that something was wrong, even though the conditions were already very generous. Although the conditions were already very generous, she still shook her head. "All right, we agree." A cold voice suddenly sounded, attracting everyone's attention to the entrance of the cafe. Ryue, who was wearing a long white dress, appeared quietly. The fur shawl on her shoulders accentuated her noble temperament. Every move she made emitted a powerful aura that enveloped the whole place. In terms of strength, Ryue was still the strongest among the Zodiac guardian gods. That day when she fought with Chiyu, she was afraid that she would hurt Chiyu's life, so she held back a little. The moment she appeared, the aura on Chiyu's side instantly rose. Ryue didn't seem to be walking fast, but as soon as she finished speaking, she had already entered the cafe. While everyone was sizing her up, she arrived beside Chiyu and Ming Ming. "Sister Ryue," Ming Ming called out. Ryue gently hugged Ming Ming's shoulder and looked at Yamu. "We agree to Miss Yamu's suggestion." Chiyu gave Ryue a questioning look. Ryue smiled and said, "I think that with Miss Yamu as a companion, Chiyu will be able to better appreciate the Greek culture. Haven't you always been interested in Greek mythology? This is a good opportunity." Hearing Ryue's words, Chiyu immediately understood what she meant. The person in front of them was a Greek guardian. If he and Ryue's guess about Miss Yamu's identity was correct, and since she promised to protect him and Ming Ming, wouldn't it be a good opportunity to investigate the situation of the Greek guardian? At the same time, understanding more about the situation in the West would naturally be of great benefit to any possible conflicts in the future. Yamu, who had been maintaining a smile, had a slight change in expression. Her purple eyes revealed a rare trace of surprise. "Mr. Chi, are you very interested in our Greek mythology? May I know what aspect of Greek mythology you are more familiar with?" Chiyu smiled. "Actually, I don't know much about it. However, I am very interested in your country's goddess of war and wisdom, Athena." Lin Yifan and Sophos' expressions changed at the same time. Although they immediately tried to hide it, Chiyu still noticed it. Yamu's delicate eyebrows moved slightly. "I see. Actually, in Greek mythology there are 12 main gods. Athena is only one of them." Ryue said, "Then it's settled. After Ming Ming's semester break ends, Chiyu will accompany her to Greece. I'll have to trouble Mr. Lin and Miss Yamu when we get there." None of the Yen Huang Soul members, including Jida, had expected things to be resolved in this way. Although it was not what they wanted to see, at least there was no conflict. They could not help but secretly sigh in relief, and their tense nerves also relaxed. Chiyu pulled Ming Ming to her feet and extended his right hand to Yamu. He smiled. "Miss Yamu, I think we will meet soon." To others, he seemed to be referring to the trip to Greece in half a month, but was that really what Chiyu meant? Yamu extended her hand to shake Chiyu's. Her hand was as warm as jade, soft and bouncy. In the warmth, there seemed to be a gentle energy fluctuation. Chiyu could clearly feel that it was a very pure energy. The energy fluctuation was not strong, and it naturally dissipated after touching his hand. "Mr. Chi, I also look forward to meeting you again." Yamu still had a faint smile on her face. She only shook Chiyu's hand lightly, and then retracted her hand. After watching Chiyu and the others leave, Yamu returned to her seat. She picked up the coffee cup in front of her and brought it to her lips, taking a small sip. Lin Yifan's gaze only retracted when Ming Ming's figure could no longer be seen. She returned to her seat and lowered her head, thinking about something. "Yifan, do you not understand why I agreed to Miss Ji's request?" Yamu put down the coffee cup and smiled at Lin Yifan. Lin Yifan said respectfully, "There must be a special meaning behind Miss Ji's arrangement." Yamu smiled and said, "You have a good eye. That Miss Ji is indeed a very outstanding girl. However, there are some things that you might not know, and I don't want you to know too much." Sofa curled her lips and said, That fellow called Chi-Yu must be the same person who eavesdropped on our conversation last night. I can recognize his aura. Although he tried his best to conceal his aura last night, he still used energy attacks when he fought with me. However, he didn't seem to be hiding it today. This fellow is very arrogant. Yesterday, he flew away like a coward. Lin Yifan was stunned for a moment and said, "Sister Saw, you said he can fly." Saw snorted and said, "You silly boy, that Chi-Yu is not very good looking. If he didn't have some ability, how could he have attracted your fiancé?" Yama smiled and said, Saw, your words are a little biased. Although Mr. Chi looks ordinary, the aura he exudes is indeed something I have never seen in my life. Among the people I met today, he is the only one that I can't completely see through. This is also the reason why I agreed to go to Greece with him. You should have seen that Chi-Yu and the girl who came later discovered my identity. With such keen insight, coupled with their own strength, their identity is also on the verge of being revealed. Saw said disdainfully, "Aren't they just people from the 4 great clans of Yen and Huang? What's so great about them? I'll find a chance to let that Chi-Yu know how powerful I am." Yama frowned and looked at Saw. Although her gaze was calm, Saw's heart couldn't help but tremble when they made eye contact. She lowered her head. Yama sighed softly and said, Saw, you've been with me for a few years. I remember telling you many times not to underestimate any opponent. That will only put you in a disadvantageous position. Chi-Yu's strength is not as simple as what you saw last night. At the same time, they don't belong to the 4 great clans. The 4 great clans of Yen and Huang are surnamed Zhou, Su, Luo, and Xin. There is no Qi surname. If they are members of the 4 great clans, it is impossible for them to hide their surnames. This should be their pride. From the ability that Chi-Yu used in your battle yesterday, if my guess is correct, they should belong to the East's strongest protector. Lin Yifan was surprised and asked, "The strongest protector? What is that?" Yamu said, "In the West, the signs of the Zodiac are the ancient standards for distinguishing the year, month, day, and hour. But in the East, it is different. The East has its own culture, and the Yen-Huang Republic is an ancient country with 5,000 years of civilization. Together with ancient Greece, Babylon, and Egypt, they are known as the 4 great ancient civilizations. And the one that preserved the most ancient civilization is the Yen-Huang Republic. In ancient times, they used the heavenly stems and earthly branches to distinguish the year, month, day, and hour. The signs of the Zodiac are far more complicated than our signs of the Zodiac. Among them, the earthly branches symbolize the 12 Zodiac signs of the East. Just like the signs of the Zodiac, they have their own protectors. They are rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, chicken, dog, and pig. And since the development of human civilization, special ability users with the 12 Zodiac signs have appeared in the East. They are the backbone of the East's protection. In the East, they are known as the Zodiac Guardians. Every one of them symbolizes an Zodiac sign and has the special ability of their own Zodiac sign. Maybe, when they are just born, they cannot be compared to the constellation guardians of the 12 Zodiac temples. But their growth speed is extremely shocking. Once the Zodiac Guardians develop to a certain extent, they will be strong enough to compete with us and the Vatican. With the help of other people with special abilities in the East, they will become an unshakable force. Every one of them symbolizes an Zodiac sign? What does that Chi-Yu symbolize? When I fought with him yesterday, he did not seem to show any animal-related ability. I only feel that his energy is very domineering, but I did not feel any sign. So said with some disagreement. She felt that when she fought with Chi-Yu yesterday, she had the upper hand. If not for Chi-Yu's ability to fly, she might have already won. Yamu smiled indifferently and said, "Compared to you Zodiac Guardians, the biggest advantage of the Zodiac Guardians is that not all of them attack on the ground. A few of them have the ability to fly. However, not every zodiac could fly. Among the zodiac that can fly, the first zodiac sign is the dragon. She is also the one that can fly the most. Then there is the chicken. According to the information I have seen, the Eastern Zodiac Guardian Chicken Warriors can use their wings to fly when they reach 7 cloud. Lin Yifan said, "Then is Chiyu a chicken or a dragon?" Yamu's eyes lit up and said, "He is neither a chicken nor a dragon. At first, I also thought he was a dragon, but when that woman appeared at the end, I knew that my judgment was wrong. Because the woman who appeared at the end was a dragon. The dragon aura on her body had a small part of our Western characteristic. That was why I could recognize her at a glance. If my guess is correct, Chiyu should be the king of the Zodiac. He has the ability to command all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors." The king of the Zodiac? What's that? Kiran. In the legends of the Yanhuang Republic, in ancient times, Kiran was the king of the divine beasts. But because Kiran's breeding ability was extremely poor, after a certain period of time, in order to pass on his bloodline, Kiran initiated to pass on his and the 12 Zodiac's bloodlines through the human body. Thus, the system of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors was formed. Do you know why you think that Kiran is not strong enough? This is because the Qilin itself is not in charge of fighting. According to our records, the Qilin possesses extremely comprehensive support abilities. As long as he is around, the strength of all the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors can increase by several levels. If Chiyu is Kiran, then he will be a big threat to us. Because in our records, Kiran is very weak. Apart from his excellent recovery ability, it can be said that he does not have the ability to attack. But yesterday, he was able to escape from your pursuit. That is enough to prove that he is not an ordinary Kiran. Compared to the 12 Zodiac, Kiran is much more mysterious and dangerous. Unless it is absolutely necessary, we should not easily become enemies with the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Otherwise, it will bring a lot of unnecessary trouble. Lin Yifan said, "Miss, I understand what you mean. As long as you say it, even if you want me to give up on the engagement, Yifan will not complain. After all, I know what is important." Yama smiled and said, "No, how can I let you give up? Not only do I not want you to give up on the engagement, but I also want you to fight for it as much as possible. Even if we do not want to become enemies with the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, at the same time, I do not want them to develop too quickly. Otherwise, the threat to us will be too great. Perhaps you have not noticed it. Your fiancée, Miss G, is also one of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors." Soaso nodded and said, "That's right. I also felt it. Her aura does not seem to be stronger than mine. But for some reason, when she released her aura towards me, I felt a very uncomfortable feeling. I felt fear from the bottom of my heart. This is really too strange." Yama smiled and said, "Actually, there is nothing strange about this. Miss G's zodiac should be the chicken. The chicken is the nemesis of some small poisonous insects, including centipedes and scorpions. Although you are a Scorpio, you will also be restrained by it. This is a natural zodiac restraint. You don't have to worry too much about it." At this moment, Yama's expression suddenly changed. A faint golden light flashed on her right hand. The light flashed and disappeared. She clenched her right hand into a fist and frowned. "What a good Kiran." Soaso asked with concern, "Miss, what's wrong?" Yama shook her head and said, "I actually did not notice that he left a trace of energy in my hand when we shook hands. Fortunately, his energy is not very strong. I just don't know why he left this energy behind." While Yama was shocked, Chiyu, who was driving the BMW, also lit up. However, the light appeared between his eyebrows and disappeared in a flash. It's a pity that they did not say the purpose of this trip to Yanhuang. When he shook hands with Yamu, Chiyu secretly left a hidden energy in her palm. Because energy was not used for attack, and Chiyu could conceal it, it was extremely difficult to notice. The purpose of this energy was very simple. It was to eavesdrop. If Chi-Yu had the strength of a 5 cloud or above, this residual energy could even last for 3 days. The eavesdropping ability was something he had just learned with Ryue and Shio today. It could only be used on living beings. Ming Ming and Ryue were sitting in the back seat of the BMW. Ming Ming did not want to go home, so she asked Jida to go back and explain to the old man. Yama was talking on the other side. Ryue also told Ming Ming in detail about what she and Chi-Yu found about Yamu, so that Ming Ming understood why she agreed to accompany Chi-Yu in Greece with Yamu. Suddenly hearing Chi-Yu say something inexplicable, Ryue could not help but ask, "What's wrong, Chi-Yu? Did you think of something?" Chi-Yu smiled slightly and said, "Just now, I left an eavesdropping energy in Yama's hand, and I heard her conversation with Sosaw and Lin Yifan. A pity that my energy was not strong enough, and she had already discovered it and expelled it. Our guess was right. Yamu is this generation's godly successor, and that Sosaw is the guardian of the Scorpio constellation. However, they have also guessed our identity. However, they did not say their purpose for coming to Yen Huang this time. It seems like I still have to carry out the original plan. Ryue, among the various powers that have come to Yen Huang, which one do you think will be the easiest to find? Don't even think about Yamu. This beautiful woman hides her strength deeply, and no one knows how strong she is. It's not time to shed all pretense of cordiality." Ryue thought about it and said, "I'm afraid it's not easy to find the people from the Vatican. From the beginning to the end, I have only seen Lu Yuan. Chi-Yu, what method do you want to use?" "Chi-Yu, there's no harm in telling you. As a member of the Shun family, Shin Yun also has her own special ability. In the past, she told me that her ability is the Mind Storm. Under certain circumstances, she can control a person's mind. Therefore, I want to capture an outsider and let her release the technique. We will get what we want to know. I don't think it will be easy for the Vatican to succeed. To be able to represent the Vatican, their faith must be very devout, and their will must be very firm. Even if I use my own strength to assist Shin Yun, it will be very difficult for me to succeed. Other than the Greek guardians and the Vatican, there is only the Dark Council. From the looks of the holy knights from the Vatican and Yamu, who inherited the god of Athena, I think that the Leopard Girl and the others were only sent by the Dark Council to make arrangements. They should still be sending people over. These fellows who belong to the dark side should be much weaker than the people from the Vatican in terms of willpower. As long as we can catch one of them, our problem will be solved. It's a pity that I don't know where the Leopard Girl has run off to. Otherwise, I would have a way to get information out of her without even using the Mind Storm." Saying that, he couldn't help but think of the last time the Leopard Girl left, the sadness in her eyes. "Leopard Girl, oh Leopard Girl, you should be able to feel that the poison in your body has been removed by now. I have never lied to you." Ryue thought for a moment, then said, "I'm afraid it won't be easy to find the people from the Dark Council." "Oh right, we can use the Sacred Flame Sex Intelligence Network. Last time, they were betrayed, and they had already formed a grudge. Hu Guang and Ian had just joined us. I think they would be very happy to help us find the people from the Dark Council. As long as we find traces of them, we will immediately take action. When we are searching, we will spread out our net at the same time, looking for the Leopard Girl who is alone, and looking for other people from the Dark Council at the same time. I have a feeling that this time, the Sun Nation won't just sit back and watch. It's very likely that they'll send people here as well. Although they don't have many powerful fighters, the Soul Devourer Hall has quite a few. They've always been good at sneaking around. Chi-Yu, there's no time to lose. Since Yamu and the others said that Ming Ming will be able to travel to Greece in 10 days, then the operation will definitely be in the next few days. We must obtain accurate information as soon as possible. Oh Ryue, when I was eavesdropping on their conversation just now, I heard Yamu say that as Kirin, my ability is mainly supportive. I think I've heard you guys mention it before. What's going on? From the time I've been cultivating myself, it seems that I haven't found anything that's supportive. Even if there is, it's just to help myself. Ryua nodded her head and said, I've asked Master about this before. At that time, Master told me that as Kirin, your greatest help to the Zodiac Guardian God would only be reflected after all the Zodiac Guardian God warriors appeared. What you can do now is to rely on your Kirin's aura to assist us in our cultivation. The Ascending Cloud technique is based on the Qilin's Ascending Qilin technique. It can be said that any of our cultivation methods have evolved from the Qilin's cultivation method. Therefore, the aura you emit during cultivation will be of great help to us. Qiyu laughed bitterly. Master is right. Once our Zodiac Guardian God appears, trouble will come one after another. How can we have the time to gather everyone together to cultivate? What's more, everyone has their own things to do, so it's almost impossible to gather them together. After Master meets with Hu Guang tomorrow, I hope that they can join us to destroy the Western Guy's mission. The two of them are strong enough, and together with us, our overall strength should be above any of the Western guys. Ryua smiled and said, You don't have to worry about this. Master's personal charm is unparalleled. I believe that no matter how lascivious those two guys are, after meeting Master, they will understand the importance of being the Zodiac Guardian God. The most important thing for us now is to find out the specific purpose of those Westerners. Ming Ming said, Qiyu, no matter what their purpose is this time, I want to participate. Qiyu smiled and said, You can't be missed. You are already a Four-Cloud, and since you have my blood in your body, the Thundercloud force seems to be a little different from before. Also, only when you are by my side, I will feel more secure. Ryua's gaze swept past Qiyu, and then looked at Ming Ming. Although she did not say anything, Qiyu still caught a trace of sadness in her eyes. He sighed in his heart. This was indeed not a good time to explain. Everything could wait until the trouble in front of them was settled. When they returned to the Dragonfield courtyard, it was time for dinner. Before eating, Qiyu first contacted Hu Guang. Sure enough, as Ryua had predicted, when Hu Guang heard that they were looking for trouble with the Covenant of Darkness, he immediately agreed to help. At the same time, he said that he was willing to provide a lot of firepower to help. The blood of the Sacred Flame sect could not be shed in vain. At the same time, Ryua also told everyone, including Zagru, about the good news of finding the snake and monkey of the Zodiac Guardian God. Zagru smiled and said, Qiyu is indeed an auspicious sign. In less than a year, there are already as many as 9 Zodiac Guardian God warriors. From now on, everyone will work together to protect our homeland. Buddha is merciful. Although we do not want to invade anyone, as the descendants of Yen and Huang, we will not allow anyone to harm our country and people. Qiyu laughed and said, Grandmaster, what you said is a bit too big. Why does it sound so strange to me? Zagru said, Do you think that I am overestimating you by using the country and people as an excuse? In fact, you are wrong. As your strength gradually increases, and as you solve the troubles in the future, you will understand that I am not overestimating you. As the leader of the Guardians of the East, everything the Zodiac Guardian God warriors do is for the sake of our descendants of Yen and Huang. Everyone who was eating quieted down, including Qiyu, Ryua, Ming Ming, Su Dong, Guan Ping, and Modi. They all had the strength of 4 clouds and above. Feeling the auspicious aura from Zagru, they all felt that their shoulders were heavy. As the Zodiac Guardian God warriors, they should bear this responsibility. Zagru smiled and looked at the vegetarian dishes specially prepared for him by the chef. He said, All right, everyone, hurry up and eat. Now that you are facing more and more troubles, time is running out. If you want to improve your strength faster, you must seize every moment to cultivate. Everyone agreed at the same time. Although Qiyu was the king of the Zodiac, in their eyes, the one who deserved the most respect was the compassionate Grandmaster Zagru. Chapter 75. Sitting cross-legged, Chi Yu wanted to enter the state of cultivation. Unknowingly, a perfect face suddenly appeared in front of him. Yamu's smile was like the spring rain that nourished everything. Although he had only seen her twice, she was too perfect. Chi Yu's mouth revealed a faint smile. It was also a wonderful thing to be able to be an opponent of such a beautiful woman. He did not feel bad because he was attracted to Yamu. As a normal man, it was normal to like beautiful women. Compared to Su Dong, he was much stronger. Since seeing Yamu today, Su Dong's eyes had been a little dull, as if he was thinking about something. Fortunately, he did not drool, otherwise he would become a lard. Focusing his mind, he guided the 4 attributes of thundercloud force in his body to slowly operate. Because this was his first time cultivating after opening all 8 meridians, Chi Yu was particularly cautious when cultivating. When Xie showed him Kiran's cultivation method, his memory was not complete. Therefore, there were some places where he had to rely on exploration during cultivation. Since experiencing the perfect thunder explosion, Chi Yu was much more careful when cultivating than before. He only had 1 life, so it was better to be honest. Before Chi Yu's thundercloud force could even complete a small circle, his spiritual world was suddenly touched. Chi Yu hurriedly returned the thundercloud force to his dantian and concentrated his consciousness on the thundercloud force. Brother Xie, what's the matter? The spiritual aura was too familiar. It was Xie that slept in his body all day long. Of course there's something, and it's a good thing. If you have nothing to do and I disturbed your cultivation, then I won't say it first. Xie said, laughing loudly and seemed to be in a good mood. Damn, Brother Xie, when did you learn to keep people in suspense? What is the matter, just say it. Xie said 2 things. First, while congratulating you on opening all 8 meridians, I want to teach you a set of cultivation method. Cultivation method? Didn't you say that the ascending Qilin technique is my cultivation method? I'm only at the 3rd cloud. Is there a need to change the cultivation method? Chi Yu asked in confusion. Xie snorted and said, Idiot, what I am going to teach you is naturally the cultivation method of the ascending Qilin skill. Chi Yu said impatiently, I've already seen the cultivation method of the ascending Qilin technique. Although I don't dare to say that I remember it, I've already seen it. But at least he remembered the gist of it. I don't remember any techniques that I can cultivate while in the 3 cloud state. Even if there is a cultivation technique that can increase one's strength, it will have to wait until I am older before I can cultivate it. After breaking through the first true form mutation, haven't I already practiced the 4 abilities that I can practice? Xie said, It looks like you don't want to learn it? Forget it, I'll continue sleeping. Don't. Chi Yu said anxiously, Tell me what it is first. I'm just curious. I don't have any intention of delaying your service. What kind of cultivation method is it? You said that it belongs to the category of the ascending Qilin skill, so it definitely won't be the cultivation method of Xie. Boss, just tell me quickly. Don't make me anxious, okay? You have to know that an inch of time is an inch of gold. Xie smiled and said, Well, you also know how to cherish time. Not simple, not simple. Well, then I'll tell you. This is definitely a good thing for you. Yes, I have shown you all the cultivation methods and techniques of the ascending Qilin skill. However, there are some hidden techniques that I didn't show you. Now, I'm going to teach you one of them. Chi Yu was stunned for a moment. Then he understood and said with slight anger, Brother Xie, you actually hid it from me. If you have a good cultivation method, why didn't you take it out earlier? Xie smiled and said, You can't blame me for this. It's the blood of Kiran King that specifically instructed me when I became your shadow. Yes, those few cultivation methods of Kiran King are really magical. It's easier to improve your strength than the basic ascending Qilin skill. However, if you don't have a good foundation, cultivating rashly will only limit your future improvement. If it's not done well, because of impatience, there's a risk of qi deviation. Therefore, Kirin King told me that only when your strength reaches a certain level, then I'm allowed to teach you these hidden techniques. Now that your 8 meridians are connected, and you've completed the first form mutation, you've already met the conditions of one of the techniques. That's why I jumped out to teach you before you started cultivating. My good intentions are really misunderstood. Why is my life so bitter? Chiyu said with some strangeness. Brother Xieji, you seem to have changed. You didn't talk to me like this before. Xieji said in a bad mood. I hang out with the 9-headed deep-sea nether snake every day. What do you think I'll become? You're good, enjoying the colorful world outside. As your shadow, I can only hide in your body and can't feel anything outside. When I'm bored, I can only chat with Senior Deep-Sea Nether Snake. He's a fierce beast, and he has cultivated for more years than me. With more contact with him, my style of speaking will naturally be closer to him. Well, less nonsense. Do you want to learn or not? Learn, of course I want to learn. Brother Xieji, hurry up and teach me. What kind of technique is this? It's so mysterious. Chiyu was secretly happy. Since it was hidden so deeply by the previous generation Kirin King, it must be a very powerful skill of Kirin. Xieji said, this technique is called Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique. As the name suggests, its main ability is to improve Kirin's thundercloud force at the fastest speed. However, from a certain perspective, this kind of cultivation method is harmful to the Qilin itself. Chiyu was stunned and said, harmful? Then why do you still teach me? You just said that the conditions are met. Does it mean that after meeting the conditions, the harm is reduced? Xieji said, this time you are finally smarter. Yes, after meeting the conditions, the harm of Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique disappears. However, more than half of his benefits also disappear at the same time. Chiyu was puzzled and said, Brother Xieji, can you explain it clearly? I still don't quite understand. Xieji said, well, don't change the topic. I will tell you now that Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique was created by a predecessor of your Kirin clan. The purpose of creating this technique is very simple. Because Kirin was still quite fragile when he was young, how to improve Kirin's strength as quickly as possible has always been the biggest hindrance of the Kirin clan. Later, a genius appeared in the Kirin clan. He relied on his comprehensive understanding of the Ascending Cloud Technique, and after hundreds of years of hard research, he finally found a special cultivation method. This is the Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique that I am going to teach you. This kind of technique is most beneficial for Kirin who is below the 3 clouds. If it is a Kirin who has just begun to practice the Ascending Cloud Technique, he only needs to retreat for 49 days to obtain this technique. He can improve his strength to the 3 clouds and complete the first origin mutation. What did you say? Chiyu's voice suddenly rose. He didn't expect the Ascending Cloud Technique to have such a powerful effect. It can be directly promoted to the 3 clouds, my God. Even if there are disadvantages, I am willing. Do you know how much energy I have spent to promote to the 3 clouds and how much pain I have suffered? Brother Xieji, you are so cruel. Xieji said, can you listen to me first? Yes, this Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique is indeed overbearing. However, only one Kirin practiced this technique since he was young. The Kirin clan prohibited this technique from being passed on to the future Kirin clan. Because the Kirin who practiced this technique, although he was promoted to the 3 clouds realm in a short period of time, he, who was extremely talented, could not improve a step after reaching the 7 clouds realm no matter how hard he tried. Later, after careful discussion with Kirin, they found out. The reason why the Ascending Cloud Technique could play such a good role was mainly because it overdrew Kirin's own potential. No matter what creature, a good foundation must be laid at an early age, and this Ascending Cloud Technique played the role of pulling up seedlings to help them grow. Although the effect was extraordinary in a short period of time, with Kirin's frequent use, the disadvantages were also revealed. After several generations of Kirin's continued research and exploration, it was finally discovered that the Kirin ascending cloud technique was not without its merits. If a Qilin cultivated the Qilin ascending cloud's great art after its 8 meridians were unblocked and it had completed its first transformation, the harm would disappear. Because at this time, Kirin's meridians were basically fixed, and Kirin's blood was fully exerted. Although the potential could be overdrawn, it would not have any impact on the future. Especially at that time, there would already be Kirin bead. With Kirin bead, practicing the ascending cloud technique after the 3 clouds realm would only be beneficial for the cultivator. Qiyu said, "What is this benefit?" Xieji said, "It's very simple. Increase the speed of cultivation and condense your own thundercloud force faster and better. You also understand that the more condensed the thundercloud force is, the stronger the power it erupts when used. Just like the thundercloud force that you have used it many times these days. Is the power of the thunder only what you can exert? If the thundercloud force of the 4 clouds only has that kind of attack power, the previous generations of Kirin would cry. That is because your thundercloud force is not condensed enough, and it can't erupt the compressed thundercloud force in an instant. This greatly reduces the attack power. And the Kirin ascending cloud technique is just a good way to solve this problem." Qiyu nodded and said, "I understand. Brother Xieji, thank you. Then you can start to teach me now." Xieji said, "I don't know how much this ascending cloud technique can improve your cultivation speed. However, you'd better be careful when cultivating. Although overdrafting your potential will not have any impact on your future, as long as you overdraft once, your body will need a period of time to recover. This kind of cultivation method is very extreme. It can be said that it hurts your own body to cultivate. Only when you don't encounter trouble, or when there is someone to protect you, can its effect be maximized." "Okay, I understand. Brother Xieji, as long as I have this cultivation method, I am not in a hurry to cultivate. I will try it slowly first." At the moment, Xieji explained the cultivation method of Kirin ascending cloud technique. The cultivation method was very complicated. Fortunately, Qiyu's spiritual force was strong enough to barely remember it. "Brother Xieji, you just said that there is more than one hidden cultivation method, right?" Qiyu smiled. Xieji said, "Of course, how do you think the glory of the Kirin clan came from? It is the accumulation of wisdom from generation to generation." Qiyu smiled and said, "Then big brother, can you teach me a few more? At worst, I won't cultivate easily. I will practice after I have the foundation. This way, you don't have to come out and teach me." Xieji snorted and said, "Qiyu, I have crossed more bridges than you have walked. Don't even think about it. I dare not disobey the order of Kirin King. Unless your strength can reach the level of the real Kirin King, then I will really become your servant. As for now, you should practice honestly. As long as you meet the conditions, I will naturally teach you." Qiyu smiled bitterly and said, "Can't you make an exception?" After memorizing the Kirin ascending cloud technique, Qiyu became more and more interested in the secret techniques of Kirin. The wisdom of the Kirin clan for many years was still unimaginable even in today's technological society. "No, by the way, I just told you that I came to find you for 2 things. The other one is not for me but for the nether snake." Qiyu said, "Brother Nether Snake? What happened to him?" Xieji said, "When you broke through the 3 clouds a few days ago, the water thundercloud force and thundercloud force rushed to the 4 clouds realm at once, draining the energy in one of the blue sea thunder bead. Senior Nether Snake asked me to ask you if you can give the empty bead to him. Because there is no energy in it, it is no longer limited by your body's aura. As long as you agree, you can give it to him." Qiyu said, "This thing is empty, what is the use? Also, why didn't Brother Nether Snake come to me himself?" Xieji smiled and said, "It's not that he doesn't want to find you, but recently he is at a critical juncture in his cultivation and can't be distracted, So before he started his cultivation, he asked me to tell you when I came out. Don't underestimate the empty blue sea thunder bead. Although it is empty, do you know what? When the nether snake cultivated it in the deep sea, he needed to make a bead shell first, which was condensed with energy. Even for the deep sea nether snake, it is not easy to condense a bead shell that can withstand enough energy impact and make it have all kinds of special abilities. If you are willing to give him the empty bead, his strength recovery speed will be much faster. If you can give him 9 empty beads, once he has the opportunity to crazily accumulate energy, maybe he can really recover to his original level. Chi-Yu didn't even think about it and said, "Okay, this is no problem. As long as I absorb the energy in the future, I will give all the empty beads to him. Since you can use it, you can use your spiritual power to directly bring the bead to him." Xie was a little surprised and said, "Don't you want to know what this empty bead is for you?" Chi-Yu said, "I don't want to know. I am not a gentleman. If the benefits are particularly great, I am afraid I will not be willing to give it away. Brother Nether Snake is really pitiful. He has cultivated for so many years, but because of me, he was contaminated with the aura of thunder and lightning. Instead, he has become my thing. Now, if I can add some to him, of course I am willing. What's more, he is originally my master." Xie said, "Good boy, this time the nether snake is happy. In fact, this empty bead is not very useful for you, because the nether snake's energy is Yin. It has something in common with your Yin Qi, and the snake bead is a great supplement to pure Yang. If you have it, it is nothing more than an additional place to store semen. For example, ordinary people have 1 testicle, and you have 1 more empty bead, it is 1 more. F*ck, you call it fun?" Chi-Yu scolded with a smile. "No need, 2 of them are enough for me. If I can't handle more wives in the future, I will borrow one from Brother Nether Snake." Xie laughed and said, "It will be strange if he is willing. Using a snake bead to store semen, this can only be done by you, the lewd Kirin. Well, these 2 things are enough, I am going back. Oh, by the way, I have been feeling that something is wrong recently. I don't know what is going on outside, but in your body, I seem to feel a very familiar breath. It is very similar to your breath, but not completely. At first, I thought that Kirin appeared again, but later, when I carefully felt the breath, I found that it was not Kirin. His blood is far less pure than yours, and it feels more like me, the king of Xie. He seems to have 50% of Kirin's blood. However, that aura had only appeared twice, and he seems to be deliberately hiding it. The breath is very weak, and I can't feel who emitted it. With 50% of Kirin's blood, I am almost sure that it is a mythological beast. If you have the chance to meet him in the future, you must make him your own. With such a strong blood of the king of mythological beasts, he must be a powerful mythological beast." Chi-Yu nodded and said, "I will try my best. However, except for you and Senior Nether Snake, I have not met any ferocious beasts or mythological beasts." Xie went back to sleep. Chi-Yu, who had just obtained the ascending cloud method of Kirin, was very excited. He almost did not hesitate to change his own practice method. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Chi-Yu carefully recalled everything that Xie had just told him. The practice of the ascending cloud method was very complicated. First of all, it had a lot to do with the basic practice of the ascending Qilin skill. When practicing the ascending Qilin skill, one must also practice another practice method at the same time. Under certain circumstances, these 2 methods could be combined together to be called the ascending cloud method of Kirin. Among them, not only must the route of the thundercloud force be absolutely correct, but at the same time, the timing of the operation must not have the slightest mistake. The principle of the ascending cloud method of Kirin was very simple. It was to exert Kirin's potential as much as possible, and to stimulate his own Kirin's blood to accelerate the absorption of energy molecules in the air. When practicing this method, Kieran's body was like a huge vacuum cleaner, absorbing almost crazily. Although Chi Yu already had the strength of the three clouds, he knew that the temptation of this practice method was huge. Even if he had surpassed the three clouds, he could still increase the speed of his thundercloud force absorption a lot. When he began to be reluctant to leave, Chi Yu also warned himself that he must not excessively stimulate his own potential. Otherwise, his weak body may encounter trouble when recovering his potential. This was a bad habit that must not be cultivated. Therefore, what he needed to find now was a critical point where he could stimulate his potential without overexerting it, or a critical point where he could recover his potential in a very short period of time. Only in this way could he exert the effect of the ascending cloud method of Kieran without letting it affect his body. As the thundercloud force gradually operated, Chi Yu's breathing began to become heavier. It was his first time practicing the ascending cloud method of Kieran, and he felt that it was particularly difficult. It was already very troublesome to multitask and practice two methods at the same time, not to mention he had to match the speed and time of the thundercloud force. Silver and black light gradually appeared around Chi Yu's body. The silver and black lines that appeared when he was preparing to use the ultimate Kieran's arm appeared on the surface of his skin again, but this time, they were much shallower than when he used the ultimate Kieran's arm. After all, the ultimate Kieran's arm was an attack method that completely stimulated all the potential and energy. The ascending cloud method of Kieran was also a cultivation method that stimulated one's potential. In a sense, they were similar. After exhaling a long breath, Chi Yu took a deep breath like a whale inhaling water. The thundercloud force fluctuation around his body suddenly became stronger. Then, he slowly exhaled the turbid air in his chest, and the Kieran pearl on his chest gradually lit up. A colorful mist composed of purple, blue, red, and green gradually appeared around his body and re-entered his body as he breathed. Gradually, Chi Yu understood the mystery of the Kieran's ascending cloud method. One of the main reasons why it could speed up his cultivation speed was that it no longer relied on breathing to absorb the energy molecules in the air like before. After the two cultivation methods merged, the pores all over his body gradually opened up and absorbed the energy molecules in the air as he breathed. In this way, the absorption of various attributes of energy became much richer. It then flowed into the veins from the pores and merged with the thundercloud force in his body. The reason why it was possible to directly cultivate the ascending cloud method was mainly because the veins in the body were not smooth at that time. He had to open the pores, and inevitably, there would be residual energy in the veins that could not be brought into the elixir field. As time passed, this energy would mutate and completely affect Kieran's body. And now, Chi Yu's 8 meridians were opened. During cultivation, he could naturally absorb all the energy absorbed into his body for his own use. Although he did not know how much his cultivation speed had increased, with the completion of the first cloud cycle of the Kieran's ascending cloud method, Chi Yu understood that the benefits of this cultivation method were almost immeasurable. With the Kieran ascending cloud method and the newly opened 8 meridians, Chi Yu knew that even if he could not quickly upgrade the thundercloud force to the next level, at the very least, it could greatly enhance the cohesion and endurance of the thundercloud force. No wonder Xieji said that he had entered the next stage. What he needed now was time. As long as he had enough time, his strength would definitely increase greatly. Before the appearance of Yamu and Soso, Chi Yu felt that his strength was enough to deal with everything. However, since seeing them, especially after seeing Yamu, he subconsciously felt a sense of crisis in his heart. Although Yamu had not shown her ability, since she had inherited the divinity of the goddess of war, Athena. In that case, how could her ability be weak? What's more, she had not only inherited the ability of war. At the same time, she also had wisdom. Although Chi Yu was reluctant to admit it, the first perfect woman he had seen in his life had become the biggest opponent in his mind. In the morning, the sun shone through the window and filled the entire room. The warmth and light made the air in the room much more refreshing. When Chi-Yu woke up from his cultivation, he found that not only had his thundercloud force become more condensed, but his spirit seemed to have also strengthened. Perhaps this was because he had forced himself to multitask. Kiran's ascending cloud technique was indeed different from the ascending Qilin tactics that he used to cultivate. In the past, after cultivating, he would always feel refreshed and indescribably comfortable. But this time, he felt a little tired. The side effects of the ascending cloud technique had already occurred. The overdraft of potential could only be recovered after a short period of weakness. When he first started cultivating, Chi-Yu had already noticed this. Therefore, he was not too eager to succeed last night. Not only did he not speed up the operation of the thundercloud force, but he also slowed down the speed of the thundercloud force operation. This smart decision made him not feel too much discomfort in the morning. Chi-Yu opened his arms and let his body be completely bathed in the sunlight. He opened the window, and suddenly, a gust of fresh air rushed into his face. The large number of plants planted in the Dragon Field courtyard provided enough oxygen in the air. When he breathed in it, it gave him a refreshing feeling and made him feel refreshed. From now on, every day was very important to Chi-Yu. Time waited for no man. He had to find out the purpose of those Westerners coming to Yanhuang as soon as possible so that he could carry out the next step with the Zodiac Guardian God warriors. At this moment, Chi-Yu looked through the window and saw the villa's courtyard door open. An off-road vehicle drove in from outside. He couldn't be more familiar with this car. The owner of the car was his disciple and could be said to be his brother-in-law. His heart skipped a beat. Chi-Yu knew that there must be something for Ji Xiao to rush over so early in the morning. Ming Ming did not go back last night. Perhaps the old man was angry. The matter was over. Now that he calmed down and thought about it, he was indeed a little overbearing. However, Chi-Yu did not regret it. For the sake of Ming Ming, even if he really had to fight with those Greeks yesterday, he would not hesitate. Of course, if this matter caused trouble, he would not be able to intervene in the affairs between countries. However, if the Greek guardian god made a move as the Zodiac King, he would not stand idly by. The reason why Ming Ming's engagement was set was definitely not because of how strong Greece was. On the contrary, Greece was a relatively weak country in the West. If they did not have a strong enough guardian god, let alone Yanhuang, even the surrounding countries would not be so respectful to him. Chi-Yu quickly washed up and went downstairs to the hall. Just then, Jida walked in from outside, and the two of them met face to face. At this time, it was still early. The servants were already preparing breakfast, but the others had not come down yet. "Master, you are up so early." Jida smiled and greeted Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu said, "What happened after yesterday? Did the old man say anything to you?" Jida smiled bitterly and said, "How could he not? Sigh, I don't even know who the old man's real son is. Don't you think it strange? The old man did not criticize you at all. He only scolded me a little. However, this matter was resolved quite satisfactorily. At least there was no conflict, and this made the old man very satisfied. However, master, this time you have embarrassed the yellow flame soul. Although Brother Tianhun is fine, the blade soul and earth soul are not very satisfied with you." Chi-Yu laughed and said, "Isn't there such a saying? Do your own thing and let others say whatever they want. I am not from your yellow flame soul, so it doesn't matter what they think of me." Jida smiled and said, "Actually, it's nothing. It's very simple to solve this kind of problem. How did you convince me back then? If there is a chance, just use it on them. The Blade Soul and Earth Soul are the representatives of the Yellow Flame Soul's internal attack warriors. Among them, the Blade Soul is even ranked above the Plant Soul. It is ranked second in the fighting order, while the Earth Soul is ranked 6th. Fighting order? Then is the first one Brother Tianhun? Chi-Yu asked curiously. Jida shook his head and said, No, the four captains Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang are not in this order. The first in the fighting order is Killing Soul. He only carries out some very special missions. I have not seen him until now. However, I heard that this person's strength is extremely terrifying. He has carried out more than 30 missions, big and small, and every time he completed it cleanly. Chiyu smiled and said, "All right, let's not talk about this first. Does the old man want you to say something to me?" Chapter 76. Hearing Jida's words, Chiyu could not help but ponder. General Ji seemed to be too lenient with him. After all, he was also in the wrong this time. Was he trying to win him over? Or was he just showing concern for him because he was an elder? Perhaps it was a combination of both. All right, go back and tell the old man that I've remembered his words. Immoral, are you that free now? Since there's no problem, you can just make a call. Why do you have to personally make a trip so early in the morning? Jida sighed. Do you think I wanted to make this trip? I had no choice. I had to do it myself. Do you know? There's another reason why the higher-ups didn't investigate the matter between you and Ming Ming. They can't care about it now. It's also because of this that we really need the help of the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors. That's why the old man sent me to invite you. Chiyu was surprised. Ask for our help? Your Yen Huang Soul army is strong. What do you need our help for? Are you going abroad to carry out another mission? I'm afraid it's hard for me to spare the time now. Jida shook his head. Not abroad. His expression suddenly turned serious. Chiyu, something big has happened in the capital. This matter concerns the safety and dignity of Yen Huang. The severity of this matter has alarmed the highest leadership of the country. Yesterday, when we returned, Brother Tianhun and the rest were sent out. Now the entire Yen Huang Soul army has been mobilized to save this crisis. Chiyu was shocked. What happened? Why is it so serious? Jida said, just yesterday afternoon, there were several tragedies in the capital. Something that shouldn't have appeared in our country has suddenly appeared. What is it? It's vampires. A cold light flashed in Jida's eyes. He clenched his fists and seemed to gather all the strength in his body. Chiyu's eyes lit up. Western vampires? Then it must be people from the Dark Parliament? Jida said, No, the vampires we found are not from the West. They are from our country. To be precise, they were infected with vampiric BD and became vampires. Moreover, these vampires who were suddenly infected seemed to have lost their consciousness and rationality. They were constantly biting other ordinary people. As long as they were bitten, they would immediately join their ranks. Although we acted quickly, the capital was too big. There were nearly 30 million people in the capital. If vampiric BD really spreads, I'm afraid. Hearing Jida's words, Chiyu immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. If it really continues to spread. Jida, how far has the situation developed? This was definitely done by the Dark Council. In the West, they were the only ones who had such a huge amount of vampire power. If we want to completely solve the problem, we must first eliminate the source. Damn it, I was just about to look for these guys. I didn't expect them to attack our country first. Jida forced a smile and said, I also know that it's the Dark Parliament's doing, but it's very difficult to find where these guys are hiding. Besides, the most important thing for us now is to find those infected people and deal with them properly. It's only been a day, and the situation hasn't reached a serious level yet. If ordinary people knew about this, I'm afraid it would immediately cause a huge panic. I understand, Jida. We, the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors, will fully support your Yen Huang Soul on this matter. This is a matter of life and death for our country. Has something similar happened before? Chiyu composed himself and sorted out the thoughts in his mind. Jida shook his head and said, It has never happened before. You also know that among you mutants, the East and the West are very different. Mutants from the West will not easily come to the East. This is the first time. Moreover, in my memory, the information on vampires is very different from this time. Our information shows that vampires generally do not cause excessive BD transmission when they drink blood, nor do they directly cause the victim to die. There are very few cases where the victim becomes a vampire and can continue to spread BD. We've already contacted Interpol and are gathering more information. This time, the Covenant of Darkness seems to be attacking Yen Huang from all sides. I really don't know if these guys have gone crazy. Chiyu snorted coldly and said, "No, these guys are not crazy. They have a purpose for doing this." Purpose? What purpose do they have? Jida asked with some surprise. Chiyu said, "They are doing this to create chaos and panic, so that the country will focus all their energy on dealing with the problem of vampires. This way they can focus all their energy on their own goal. It seems that this time, the target that these guys from the West have come to Yen Huang is really not simple. They actually dare to attack our country on such a large scale. It shows that they are determined to get their hands on this target. Alright, then let's bury these guys in our Yen Huang land." His eyes flashed, and Chiyu exuded a noble aura. He shouted in a low voice, "Everyone, get up. There's something." His voice did not sound loud, but it had a strong penetrating power. It clearly spread to every room in the villa. After a while, everyone appeared in the hall. Chiyu asked Jida to repeat what he had told him. After hearing about the vampire attack, the Zodiac guardian god's expressions changed. Like Chiyu, they immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. Jida said, "Luckily, vampires have a weakness. They can't go out during the day. Otherwise, it would be even more difficult now. Today is extremely important to us. We have to find the infected as much as possible. At the same time, we have to find the source and stop the spread of the vampires. Otherwise, the situation will change drastically tomorrow." Chiyu nodded and said, "Ryue, immediately inform Vol and Little E to come to the Dragonfield courtyard. Also, inform the Shin family. They are powerful enough in the capital. Ask them to immediately assist the Yen Huang Soul sect in searching for those who have been bitten. Also, inform us of the situation. The situation is urgent. At the same time, call Hu Guang, Ian, and the rest. If possible, ask the Sacred Flame sect to assist us in this operation." Ryue agreed and immediately returned to her room to make the call. At this moment, Ming Ming suddenly said, "Big brother, what should we do with those who have been bitten and turned into vampires after we catch them? Is there a way to cure them?" Jida said sadly, "If there was a way to cure them, it would not be so serious. Now, those who are caught are temporarily locked together. If there is no other way, for the sake of social stability, I'm afraid." Ming Ming covered her mouth in shock. After all, she was a girl. It was inevitable that she would be a little frightened after hearing such a cruel thing. Modi said, "In that case, every time a vampire bites a person, it can be said that they have killed a person. These guys are too evil. Big brother Jida, I think it is equally important to find a way to cure them." Jida said, "Our country does not know much about vampires. There is also very little information. Now that the country has mobilized all the scientific research forces to carry out research, it will not be able to have results in a short period of time." Guan Ping said, "I know some information about vampires. In the past, when I was researching human genetics, I once heard a professor talk about vampires because of a special opportunity. There are many kinds of vampires, and their existence has a very long history. The BD infection you mentioned should be called blood transfusion BD. This BD has many characteristics, and it exists in the blood of vampires. For ordinary people, this BD has many characteristics, and it exists in the blood of vampires. This is a type of poison. Blood metamorphosis BD can be said to be a special poison that allows vampires to have a long life. At the same time, it is also a double-edged sword. It will affect the body of a vampire. However, once the blood metamorphosis BD comes into contact with the air, it will immediately evaporate. Therefore, when ordinary vampires suck blood, they will either suck too much blood and die, or their own BD will instantly spread to death. It is rare for the bitten person to become a vampire. Now this situation can only mean one problem. That is, the level of the vampires who come to our country must be very high. Only then can they possibly spread their BD to ordinary people. It is not fatal, and the BD will continue to spread. Chi Yu's gaze fell on Zagru and said, "Master, what do you think of this matter?" Zagru frowned deeply, and his eyes were full of worry. He clasped his hands in front of his chest and said, "Amitba, this is the calamity of Yen Huang. We can only do our best to deal with this matter. However, for creatures like vampires, our guardian deities of the East are not good at dealing with them." Hearing Zagru's words, Chi Yu's eyes flashed. He punched his left palm with his right fist and said happily, "That's right. We don't understand vampires, but that doesn't mean that no one does. The people from the Vatican are also in Yanhuang, and they might even be in the capital. We don't know how many years they have been fighting with the Dark Council, so they must be very familiar with vampires. To solve the problem of vampires once and for all, we have to find the people from the Vatican first. Chieda, go back first and ask the old man to tell the higher-ups to contact the headquarters of the Vatican. I think they will definitely be very interested in vampires. Don't worry, we will act immediately on our side." "All right, Master, I will leave first. After this matter is settled, I will treat everyone to a drink." He was also a straightforward person, and immediately ran out after saying so. Su Dong said, "Chi Yu, I'm afraid things are not as simple as you think. Don't forget the purpose of the people from the Vatican coming to Yen Huang. The chaos in the capital won't do them any harm, right?" Chi Yu looked at Su Dong, and his voice suddenly became colder. "I hope the Vatican won't do that. Otherwise, if the vampires come to our country to cause trouble, I might even bring a few ferocious beasts to the Vatican to play." Modi frowned slightly and said, "Chi Yu, you are really scary now." Chi Yu smiled lightly and said, "Of course, I'm not as straightforward as Vol. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. People offend me, hee, then don't blame me for not being polite. I have a strong point, and that is that I hold grudges. However, Brother Su is right. We still have to be on our guard against the Vatican. We can't put all our hopes on them." At this moment, Ryua walked down from upstairs. As she walked down, she said, "The Sacred Flame sect is really efficient. Hu Guang said that they have already found the Dark Parliament's base in the capital. He and Yi have already brought people over. They want us to meet up with them directly and move together." Chi was shocked. "So fast?" Ryua smiled and said, "Actually, after the Dark Parliament betrayed them, the Sacred Flame sect has already started to look for them. These people from the underworld have always held grudges. Let's go now." Zagru said, "You must be careful on this trip. Don't get bitten by the vampires. We are not familiar with the specifics of the blood inheritance BD. Once you are poisoned, it will be very troublesome. Even if your body is different from normal people, you can't guarantee that you won't be affected." Chi Yu nodded and said, "Master, don't worry. We all have our own attribute mutation. It won't be easy for the vampires to bite us. When Vol and Little E arrive later, let them stay in the courtyard. Before the matter with the vampires is resolved, let them stay here." After all, Vol and Little E were still weak. Ensuring their safety was the most important. They left the Dragonfield courtyard. This time, they drove Ryua's extended Cadillac. Uncle Zhou personally drove them. Chi Yu, Hai Ryua, Ming Ming, Su Dong, Guan Ping, and Modi sat in the back. They had gathered the strongest strength of the Guardian warriors. According to the information given by Hu Guang over the phone, the Covenant of Darkness had settled down in an old factory in the southern suburbs of Beijing. It was less than 20 kilometers away from the place where they had traded with the Sacred Flame sect. The Sacred Flame sect had not yet figured out how strong the Covenant of Darkness was. Therefore, when Ryue was talking to Hu Guang, she told him not to act rashly before the Guardian warriors arrived. Ryue said, "Our abilities are different, but relatively speaking, everyone's attack power is very strong. In order to minimize the attack power and maximize the effect, we will split into 2 groups later. One group will be made up of Qiyu, Mingming, and Sudong. Guan Ping, Modi, and I will form the second group. We will attack those vampires from different directions." Qiyu nodded and said, "This distribution is very reasonable. Our abilities are more balanced. I've fought with vampires once, and from the situation, I can tell that their bodies are very tough. Furthermore, their greatest characteristic is that they are extremely fast. They also have some special dark abilities. I suspect that different vampires have different dark abilities. As they have some abilities similar to bats, they are very agile when it comes to dodging attacks. Therefore, when we attack, we will try our best to launch an area attack. This way, no matter how sensitive their senses are, it will be very difficult for them to escape from us. I think that since the Covenant of Darkness has entered our country on a large scale this time, it will not only be the vampires. I'm afraid that there will be other members, including the werewolves. Everyone must be careful when we move and prioritize your own safety." Guan Ping reached into his bosom and took out a box. When he opened the box, it was filled with silver needles. The needles were about 5 inches long and very thin. They were shining with a faint cold light. "Everyone, divide them." These silver needles were originally used to extract blood samples for experiment. Don't think that they are very thin, but they are hollow inside. In my impression, besides sunlight, the vampires are most afraid of silver. I think that as long as we use these silver needles to pierce their hearts, no matter how strong their bodies are, we will be able to kill them. Qiyu picked up a silver needle and carefully looked at it. He smiled and said, "This is really good stuff. It doesn't need to leave any traces when killing people. I think that in the future, all of us Zodiac warriors should carry some. These silver needles are so thin that they don't take up any space at all. It's perfect for us paranormals to use them to kill people. It would be even better if we put some poison on them." Guan Ping was speechless for a while. "Boss, the cost of making these silver needles is very high. Our country doesn't have this kind of craftsmanship to make such a precise hollow silver needle." Ming Ming giggled and said, "Qiyu, I think it's a waste that you don't become an assassin." Qiyu smiled and said, "It's good that it's hollow. If we put poison in it and insert it into a person's body, the poison will naturally enter the person's body. This thing is definitely a necessary weapon for killing people. Come, let's divide it." As he said that, he grabbed a handful and directly put it into his Kirin bead. The others also took some. Although the silver needles were very thin, because they were made of silver, they were not light. They felt a little heavy in their fingers. Chiyu's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that the call was from Jida. "Master, why aren't you at Dragonfield Courtyard?" Jida asked with some doubt. Chiyu said, "We already have some clues. We are now on the way to find those guys from the Dark Council. Oh, you don't have to come. I will inform you if there's any news." The Sacred Flame sect was, after all, an underworld organization. For the sake of Hu Guang, Ian, and the rest, Chiyu felt that it was better not to let the two sides meet so easily. Moreover, with these people around, if they still couldn't solve the problem, then more people from the Yen Huang Soul sect might not be able to achieve any good result. "Master, we have already contacted the Vatican. They said that the Vatican has people in Yen Huang to capture these people from the Dark Council. They said that they want us to contact a guy called Lu Yuan." "It's him?" Chiyu's heart skipped a beat and he said, "Give me your number. I have dealt with this Lu Yuan before. Let's see if we can get anything from him." "Alright, Master. If you find anything, please contact me as soon as possible." I will tell the higher-ups to mobilize the Yen Huang Soul sect and the army to support you. Jida immediately gave Qi Yu Luyuan's number. After hanging up, Qi Yu revealed a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. The Vatican's reason was rather dignified. However, were they really here to capture people from the Dark Council? It probably wasn't that simple. As he thought about it, he immediately dialed Luyuan's number. Hello. Luyuan's melodious voice came from the other end. In Chinese, Mr. Paladin, Qi Yu said unhappily. He had never been interested in foreign languages. Oh, who is it? Luyuan asked, a little surprised. We have met before. Think about it yourself. I think the Vatican has already informed you. I can be considered to be representing Yen Huang now, and I am preparing to deal with the people from the Dark Council. Doesn't the Vatican have a deep grudge with them? In that case, come and help. Luyuan's memory was obviously very good, and he immediately recognized Qi Yu's identity from the voice. So it's you. I already know about the Dark Council. This bunch of people actually came to the Yen Huang Republic to cause trouble. They simply have no respect for the Vatican. Mr. Qi, don't worry, we will definitely help you. Have you found where they are staying? Qi Yu told him the address. We are on our way there now. When will you and your people arrive? Luyuan said, I can't say for sure. Mr. Qi, you might have also guessed that the capital of your country is too big, and I am not familiar with the roads. I can only say as soon as possible. Qi Yu said, That's good. Do you know who the people from the Dark Council are? How can they spread the vampire BD among ordinary people on such a large scale? Luyuan pondered for a while and said, I'm afraid things are a little troublesome. To be able to spread the vampire BD in such a way, they must be at least at the Grand Duke level. The vampires are divided into many families, and each family has at most 2 or 3 Grand Duke. The entire vampire family is led by the 3 Grand Princes, and these 3 Grand Princes are, without exception, members of the 13 members of the Dark Council. I think this time, the Dark Council has sent at least 1 vampire prince and more than 5 Grand Duke. That is why they could create so much trouble in just one night. Mr. Qi, although I know you are very strong, these high-level vampires are very scary. But these high-level vampires are very scary, so you have to be careful. According to the accurate information I received, the members that the Dark Council sent to your country this time are mainly vampires. I don't know the exact situation of other races. Alright, I understand. Hurry to their base as soon as possible. It is daytime now. I think it is more suitable for us to act. Luyuan said, Oh, by the way, there's something I have to remind Mr. Qi. Although vampires are afraid of sunlight, at the Earl rank and above, sunlight can only affect them, but it can't make them afraid. As for the Grand Duke rank, but when they reach the Grand Duke level, sunlight can only make them hate it. Damn, you mean that high-level vampires can also act in the daytime? Qi Yu's heart tightened. If that was the case, the situation would be even more difficult to control. Mr. Qi, don't worry. Although high-level vampires are not affected by sunlight, the vampire servants infected by the vampire BD can only hide in the dark during the day. Oh, by the way, the most harmful things to vampires are high-purity fire energy, silver weapons, and condensed sunlight. Their bodies are very tough. The stronger they are, the stronger their body's defense, and they are very fast. Coupled with their self-proclaimed black magic, they are the most difficult race to deal with in the Dark Council. Alright, I understand. You guys come as soon as possible. After hanging up the phone, Qi Yu told the rest of the Zodiac Guardian warriors what Luyuan had told him. They didn't feel any fear. After all, the Zodiac Guardian warriors had never fought against a creature like vampires before. They did not know how strong they were. On the other side, Luyuan looked at his phone and revealed a faint smile. He said to himself, the Covenant of Darkness finally couldn't help but make the first move. Let them fight it out themselves. It's best if both sides suffer. These guys from the underworld have helped us clear the obstacles. Maybe God will forgive their previous crimes. Jingnan Soy Sauce Factory was originally a famous condiment manufacturer in the capital. A few years ago, due to fierce competition and its own backward equipment, it was gradually squeezed out of the historical stage. After struggling for a few years, it was defeated by its peers. The factory covered an area of more than 10,000 square meters. In the westernmost part of the factory, there was a large warehouse. The warehouse was originally used to store raw materials. Ever since the factory closed down, the owner wanted to sell this place. However, because of the price, they could not come to an agreement. Therefore, the factory was abandoned here. The factory was full of weeds. At this time, they had already withered and looked a bit miserable. The warehouse that stored the condiments was about 7 meters high, 50 meters long, and 10 meters wide. About 5 meters high, there was a small window every 3 meters. However, for some reason, the window was completely sealed with black cloth. The old man who was originally guarding the door of the factory was standing in the guardroom. Even the window of the guardroom was sealed with black cloth. The old man's eyes flickered with a dull and cold gaze. There was a purplish-black bite mark on his neck. Inside the warehouse, there were more than 20 coffins. Most of the coffins were black. On the surrounding walls, the cold blue light made the warehouse, which was originally used to store raw materials, look even colder. It was like a huge tomb. In the middle of the warehouse, there was a coffin that was particularly eye-catching. Because it was different from the other coffins, its entire luster was shining with a strange red light. A young man who looked to be in his 20s was leaning against the coffin. He held a crystal goblet of red wine in his hand and gently swirled it. His other hand was rhythmically tapping on the coffin, looking leisurely and contented. There was a dark red liquid in the red wine. Under the cold light, it shone with a faint luster like a ruby. The young man took a small sip of the liquid in the glass and said with some intoxication, "Well, it's really delicious. I didn't expect the blood of Easterners to be so much sweeter than us Westerners. If I had known, I would have come to this beautiful and rich country earlier." The young man had a head of short golden hair that was neatly combed. Every movement he made naturally exuded a noble aura. His handsome face was a little too fair. If it wasn't for his pair of constantly shining red eyes, he could be called a handsome young man from the West. His eyes looked very cold. Although his voice was intoxicated, there was no change in his eyes. He was tall and wore a well-ironed tuxedo. One look and anyone could tell that he was a person who cared a lot about appearance. In front of the young man, there were 2 other people. Compared to him, the 2 of them looked a lot worse. One of them was about 1.9 meters tall. He had a head of strange gray hair, and his eyes were a tawny color that ordinary humans did not have. Although he did not look very strong, it was easy to feel the explosive power hidden in his body under the gray trench coat. The other person looked a little scary. Jida's body was already considered very tall among ordinary people. However, if Jida stood in front of this person, he would look like a child. This person's height had reached a terrifying height of more than 2.3 meters. If he were to play basketball, perhaps no one would be able to compete with him. A pair of brown trousers were propped up by his strong leg muscles. The leather boots on his feet were unimaginably big. It was difficult to judge their size with the naked eye. After all, not many people had seen such big shoes before. His naked upper body was full of exaggerated muscles. Because his muscles were so developed, some parts looked a little deformed. The texture of his muscles was clearly visible. Thick blue veins were densely covered under his skin like electric wires. His arms were as thick as an ordinary person's waist. His big head was definitely as big as a dipper. His punk-like hair stood erect. The wrinkles on his fierce face seemed to be able to hold a pencil. The cold winter seemed to have no effect on him. At this time, he was holding a huge plate in his left hand. His right hand was grabbing something dripping with blood and stuffing it into his mouth. He ate it very happily. It turned out to be a heart. Fortunately, the heart looked very big and didn't seem to belong to a human. When the giant heard the young man's words, he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. The whole warehouse seemed to shake. Good my ass. Damn it. You have someone to drink blood, but I can only eat cow hearts here. Tonight, I'm going to act with you vampires. You guys drink blood and I'll eat hearts. This time, I'm going to eat to my heart's content. The young man smiled and said, Strong Bear King Baslu, I think it's better for you to stay here. Although you bear people are the strongest, once you meet people from the Yen Huang Emperor Kingdom, you won't be as agile as us noble blood breeds. This place is very good. It's far from the city and is spacious enough. It's better for you to stay here with Wolf King Garnet. After we stir up chaos in the capital, we can start the real operation. Chapter 77. The young man twirled the wine glass in his hand elegantly. Is it really that simple? The Yen Huang Republic is a powerful nation. As far as I know, their guardian of the East once made the entire West tremble. I think it's best if you don't think too highly of yourself. We are both members of the Dark Council. There's no need for me to lie to you. The human heart is delicious, but if we really anger the Yen Huang people, we'll be in big trouble. Wolf King Garnet said coldly, Klinsman, last time, your subordinates and my subordinate, Panther Lady, came here to set up a base. However, there was no news of them after that. I need an explanation from you. Klinsman smiled slightly and said mockingly, Explanation? What explanation is there? They were probably all killed by the Yen Huang people. Gannett, that's just a little Panther Lady. Why are you so serious? Don't you have enough werewolves under you? Klinsman, you're not playing dumb with me, are you? You should know that she's the most perfect Panther Lady I have, and my son has taken a liking to her. You vampires have always been well informed, haven't you? Last time, I sent my men to coordinate with your people here because of your request. Now that there's a problem, you have to give me an explanation. Klinsman said coldly, All right then, I'll send someone to investigate. Gannett, you're still as impulsive as ever. You're now one of the Dark Council members. I hope you'll put the interests of the Council first. Otherwise, even though I just released the primordial red gold blood, I can still punish you on behalf of the Council. Gannett was just about to say something when the Bear King, Baslu, said, Enough, you two should stop arguing. But I'm curious, Klinsman. As a vampire prince, why would you give your primordial red gold blood to an Easterner? If I remember correctly, even if you're a prince, you can only use the primordial red gold blood once in your life. Could it be that an Easterner woman is so charming that you're willing to use your own energy to release the primordial red gold blood? The corner of Klinsman's eye twitched. I naturally have my own reasons for doing this. I had never thought that I would give the precious red gold origin blood to an Easterner. However, when I saw this woman last night, I couldn't suppress the excitement in my heart and chose to do this without hesitation. Even now, I don't regret it. She looked too much like Christie. No, it shouldn't be said about her looks, but her temperament, big, beautiful eyes, long, dark red hair, and the faint melancholy between her brows. She was like a cute, melancholic kitten that made people feel pity for her. As the noble and pure-blooded prince of the Dracula family, Klinsman Dracula, my heart was filled with the urge to turn her dyed hair into the dark red that I was familiar with. Her temperament, her eyes, they were all too much like my dead Christie. Back then, when Christie and I were young, although we were members of the Dracula family, we were often bullied by the children of other families because our parents died early and no one came to protect us. My poor sister, Christie, was only 19 years old that year. She was chosen by the young master of the Osmond family in a vampire gathering. At that time, I tried my best to save my sister, but I couldn't do anything because I was too weak. I could only watch as my sister was taken away by those bastards. The next day, when I waited at the entrance of the Osmond family, What I got was a corpse. Do you know what the Osmond family said? They said that Christie committed suicide. I knew that my poor sister had a heart as strong as gold, and that her suicide must have been because she couldn't bear the humiliation. However, when I brought her body home, I found out that she was still raped, and she was raped after she died. With a crisp crack, the red wine glass in Klinsmann's hand turned into powder. His handsome face became somewhat distorted, and his body emitted a layer of evil dark red light. Wolf King Garnet was secretly shocked. He knew that Klinsmann wasn't bragging. Releasing the primordial red blood clearly didn't affect his true strength. As a senior member of the Dark Parliament, Klinsmann's strength was indeed much stronger than his. The Bear King Baloo said, "Was it because of this that you destroyed the Osmond family?" Ha 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 ha. Klinsmann let out a strange laugh. My sister is dead. My only family member is dead. Although I hated them to the core, I knew that I was no match for the Osmond family, and no one in my own family would help me. That's why, it's because of my strength. That's why, from then on, I trained hard and spent every day training. In order to advance faster, I even risked my life to sneak into the Vatican to kill their radiant knights and absorb their blood to stimulate the growth of my strength. I did it. In a mere 500 years, I turned from an ordinary member of the Blood Clan into a prince of the Blood Clan. With my strength, I killed that arrogant uncle of mine during a gathering of the Blood Clan and sat in my current position. But what's the use of all this? Even if I became the most powerful prince of the Blood Clan, even if I sat in the position of chief and destroyed the Osmond family, I still couldn't save Christie's life. Christie is an eternal pain in my heart. That's why when you saw that the Asian girl from yesterday looked like your dead sister, you gave her the embrace with the primordial red blood. Yes, I have the ability to protect my sister now. This time, I won't allow anyone to hurt her. The red glow in Klinsmann's eyes became much gentler. His gaze fell on the dark red coffin beside him, and his left hand gently stroked the top of the coffin. Wolf King Garnet's nose suddenly twitched, and his eyes rolled slightly. I think I smell the scent of living people. And there are many of them. They seem to be coming for us. Klinsmann seemed to have recovered from his memories and said with some surprise, "They were exposed so quickly. I didn't expect the Yen Huang people to react so quickly. Baslu, you bear people won't be affected during the day. Don't you want to eat people's hearts? This is a good opportunity. I really hate the sun. If you can't hold on, Garnet and I will bring people to help you." Baslu chuckled and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Leave it to me. Kids, get up." He stomped his right foot on the ground, and the entire warehouse shook. In a dark corner, tall figures stood up one after another. There were 8 of them in total, and every one of them was topless like Bear King Baslu. They were more than 2 meters tall, and they were also muscular and inhuman. With heavy footsteps, they gathered in front of Bear King Baslu. The number of bear people in the Dark Council was far less than the number of vampires and werewolves, but their battle strength was indispensable to the Dark Council. Be it in terms of attack or defense, the Bearmen warriors were the best fighting force for the Dark Parliament against the Church's Knights of Light. Even the higher-ranked paladins would not want to meet such a powerful and resilient fellow. Klinsmann had said that wercats weren't fast compared to high-level vampires. Not only was the Bearmen not slow, but it was also much faster than ordinary people. In the Dark Council, an ordinary werecat's status was comparable to that of a vampire viscount. Even though Baslu had only brought 8 bearmen with him, they were all berserk bearmen, the strongest of the bearmen. "The people inside, listen up. You've been surrounded. I'll give you a chance. Put down your weapons and slowly walk out of the gate. Otherwise, you'll be killed on the spot." A loud voice came from outside using a megaphone. Wolf King Garnet clenched his hands, which were covered in green veins. He said disdainfully, "Are these Yen Huang people idiots?" Baslu didn't know Yen Huang's language, but since the people outside were shouting in English, he could naturally understand them. He laughed wildly and roared, "Great! Then I'll slowly walk out from the main gate." Just then, Vampire Prince Klinsman's expression suddenly changed. "Oh no, be careful!" Boom! 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 The ground trembled, and the violent shock waves destroyed the entire warehouse in an instant. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and gunpowder. The entire warehouse had been reduced to rubble. The force of the explosion was too strong. The ground where the warehouse had been was blasted into a 3-meter deep pit. Smoke rose into the air like a mushroom cloud. The place where the warehouse had been was completely engulfed in flames. Chi Yu looked strangely at Hu Guang, who was putting down the rocket launcher. "Didn't you say to let them come out and surrender?" Hu Guang chuckled and said, "Do you think they'll surrender? To deal with these guys, launching an attack when they're careless is the best choice. This is also my style, Hu Guang's style." Today, he was dressed the same as the day he met Chi Yu and Hairu. It was as if he only had this set of clothes and had never bathed. Especially in this cold winter, he was still wearing those oversized slippers. With a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, he looked as wretched as one could get. However, it was this wretched guy who had thrown more than 15 rockets into the warehouse with a wave of his hand. According to Ian, these were not ordinary rockets, but high-explosive incendiary bombs. They were perfect for dealing with the vampires. Modi said, "If we had known this would happen, why would we have come? You guys are too bloodthirsty." Hu Guang looked at Modi lecherously and said, "Long-legged sister, this is just the appetizer. I'm afraid those guys won't die so easily. F***ck you jinx. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak." Ian's voice was filled with surprise. Everyone, including the Zodiac Guardian God warriors led by Chi Yu and the 200 elites of the Sacred Flame sect, saw a strange scene. A layer of black and red air slowly rose from the deep crater created by the rocket launcher. Wherever it passed, the powerful incendiary bomb's burning ability actually disappeared. The flames became weaker and a cold aura rose. Hu Guang was a little surprised and said, "F***ck, they didn't die even after such an explosion. That's fierce." Chi Yu said in a low voice, "They're the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. If they died so easily, they would have been killed by the Vatican long ago. Everyone, be careful." As he spoke, he shot a look at Ryue. Ryue immediately led Modi and Guan Ping to the other side. At this moment, black and red light rose from the huge crater created by the rocket launcher. It was a terrifying coffin. Each coffin was surrounded by black and red light. Following that, low growls followed. More than 10 Westerners with grayish-white hair and ferocious faces jumped out of the crater together with the coffins. All of them looked extremely strong and emitted a layer of gray aura. Their yellow eyes were filled with ferocity. Behind them, 8 huge figures appeared. They were the 8 raging bearmen. Ian said in surprise, "F***ck, these guys are too sturdy. Do we need to use nuclear bombs to kill them?" Hu Guang said angrily, "If we use nuclear bombs, we'll be finished first. Kids, attack them. F***ck, I don't believe that armor-piercing missiles won't be able to cause them any harm." His seemingly casual words were an absolute order to the members of the Sacred Fire sect. The 200 members of the Sacred Fire sect, who were scattered in the surroundings, immediately unleashed a storm-like attack toward the 3 major races of the Covenant of Darkness. Hu Guang and Ian were very dissatisfied with the rocket launcher attacks earlier. However, they did not know that although the earlier wave of attacks did not seem to have any effect, they had actually caused great harm to the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. This time around, the Vampire Prince Klinsman, the Bear King Bosru, and the Wolf King Garnet had brought along the elites of their races. Klinsman had brought along a total of 5 Vampire Grand Dukes and 10 Vampire Viscounts. In Europe, the Dracula clan, which was known for their pure bloodline, was the #1 clan among the vampires. However, this was only half of their power. This time around, there were only 2 Grand Dukes and a few Marquises and Earls left to guard their clan. As the clan leader, Klinsmann had come personally. The Wolf King Garnet had brought along the elite werewolves under him. Compared to ordinary werewolves, these werewolves had faster speed and sharper attacks, as well as some simple dark abilities. The Bear King Bosru had also put in a lot of effort. He had brought along the most elite ferocious bearmen under him. Although the rocket launcher attacks earlier did not kill or injure the main force of the Covenant of Darkness elites, they had still killed 6 of the weaker vampire viscounts under the vampire Prince Klinsmann. In the center of the explosion, 7 or 8 werewolves had also been killed. Only the ferocious bearmen, who had extremely strong defenses, had not suffered any damage. At this moment, the most furious one was the Wolf King Garnet. Half of the 20 werewolves he had brought with him had been killed. How could he not be furious? Bullets rained down on the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. The Wolf King Garnet roared angrily and chanted a strange incantation. All the werewolves howled at the same time. Their bodies, which were already very sturdy, suddenly swelled up. In an instant they had become huge, muscular men about 2.5 meters tall. Gray hair spread from their heads to their back. Their mouths protruded forward, revealing their white fangs. Their hands and feet changed the most. Not only did they swell up the most, but they also had huge, sharp, and thick claws. Their bodies emitted a gray aura as they pounced forward. Although the speed of the werewolves could not compare to the dexterous figures of the vampires, their instantaneous explosive power was still very strong. However, these werewolves had indeed underestimated the power of the armor-piercing bullet. Although their bodies had become extremely tough after transforming into werewolves, they still could not completely withstand the attack of the armor-piercing bullet. Large amounts of blood splattered from the bodies of the 4 werewolves at the very front. Although their momentum did not decrease, their bodies had already suffered serious injuries. However, the Covenant of Darkness had been able to contend against the Church for so many years. Naturally, they had their own unique points. Seeing that they could not withstand the hail of bullets, all the werewolves immediately chose to retreat. The place they retreated to was where the 8 berserk bearmen were. The 8 huge bearmen, who were more than 2 meters tall, let out angry roars as their bodies doubled in size. Standing together, they looked like a huge wall. Their unbelievably strong bodies, which were 4 meters tall, were able to withstand the attacks of the bullets. The armor-piercing bullets actually caused sparks when they hit their bodies. Their muscles were like steel. At the same time, other than the dark red coffin beside Klinsmann, the other coffins floating in the air exploded at the same time. The rest of the coffins exploded at the same time. Streaks of black figures soared into the sky. The 5 vampire Grand Dukes and the remaining 4 vampire Viscounts had completed their transformations at the first instant. They released the wings on their backs and their fangs protruded from their lips. Circles of dark red light rapidly spread toward the Sacred Flame sect. The moment the bullets came into contact with the light, they actually disappeared into thin air. It was as if they had fallen into an abyss. Vampire Prince Klinsmann, Bear King Basil, and Wolf King Garnet appeared at the same time. Basil roared angrily, "Despicable Yen Huang people! How dare you launch a sneak attack? Kill them! Don't let me see a complete corpse." After the raging bearmen entered their berserk state, they were like huge killing machines. They took huge strides and charged toward the Sacred Flame sect. With every step they took, the ground would shake. The demon werewolves that were covering behind them followed closely. As soon as they got close, they would immediately display their powerful lethality. The high-level vampires flying in the air were not afraid of bullets at all. Under the cover of their dark special ability, the engulfing spell, the bearmen and werewolves were even more fearless. The 3 kings of the Covenant of Darkness had no doubt that as long as their subordinates charged into the enemy's camp, it would be an all-out massacre. Despicable? How can we compare to you creatures of darkness? A tall figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. The shooting stopped, and the Sacred Flame Sect's followers retreated at the fastest speed under the command of Hu Guang and Ian. The person who had appeared in the middle of the battlefield was Qi Yu, with Ming Ming and Su Dong by his side. The three of them emitted a dazzling glow at the same time. Qi Yu's four-colored thundercloud force flashed simultaneously, while Ming Ming's body emitted a layer of faint gold. This was the color that had changed after she had absorbed Qi Yu's blood. Under the golden glow, the originally five-colored energy had turned into a seven-colored one. As for Su Dong, he emitted a milky white glow as usual. His usually smiling face now revealed a grave expression. The bear men who had entered a berserk state did not care who their enemies were. When they realized that Qi Yu and the other two were in front of them, they charged over without hesitation. Qi Yu let out a cold snort and bellowed, "Zodiac Guardian Warrior, Origin Mutation." Black and silver light soared into the sky under the seven-colored golden light and the domineering 100 light. The clothes on Qi Yu's upper body disappeared in an instant, revealing his bronze-colored skin. The Kirin pattern on his chest became abnormally clear under the stimulation of the thundercloud force. He raised his head that was the king of the divine beasts arrogantly, and every strand of hair on the Kirin pattern appeared abnormally clear. At this moment, the huge black and silver light in the sky also took shape. Qi Yu's long black hair hung loosely behind his back. Unknowingly, a strand of silver hair had appeared in the middle of his hair. His eyes, which were silver when he used the Qilin cloud power, had turned back to black. They were as black as ink, like two black gems without any impurities. His whole body was covered with a layer of black scale armor, which flickered with a faint cold light. Under the effect of the dark red Kirin cloak, Qi Yu looked like a demon at this moment. However, he did not have a mask on his face like the other Zodiac Guardian warriors. His right arm was the most special. Only his right arm was not covered with black scales. The armor on his right arm was also black, but the black armor was inlaid with silver patterns. The silver patterns were very special. They were silver whorls, and there were also spikes on the whorls. It felt like a silver sun. With a loud roar, an indescribable power suddenly burst out. Although the berserk bearman and the demon wolfman were dark creatures of the west, the strength they borrowed still belonged to wild beasts. Whether it was a wolf or a bear, facing the aura of the divine beast King Qilin, their momentum suddenly slowed down. Even the berserk bearmen subconsciously felt the danger in front of them. Ming Ming's body was already covered with seven-colored feathers. Apart from the two more colors than before, the seven-colored feathers were also shrouded in a pale golden radiance. She was very clear that the seven-colored feathers should have appeared after her second-stage origin mutation. Although there was no other second-stage origin mutation at this time, the seven-colored feathers had already greatly improved her ability. However, just the rainbow-colored feathers alone had greatly increased his strength, especially that faint layer of golden light. It had greatly condensed the cloud energy in his body, and all of this was brought to him by Qi Yu's Qilin bloodline. Before the appearance of Qi Yu, Su Dong had always been ranked second among the Zodiac Guardian warriors, only second to Ryu. At this time, after completing the origin mutation, the pair of tiger wings on his back spread out. His whole body emitted the aura of the king of beasts. The white tiger fur all over his body was mixed with a few black patterns. The toughness of the fur was not inferior to the armor. Seeing the three suddenly transform, Vampire Prince Klinsmann's pupils contracted. He said in a low voice, "It's the Zodiac Guardian warriors from the east. I didn't expect them to appear. Let's go. We can't let them hurt us." Just as the three kings of the Covenant of Darkness were about to join the battle, a cold voice with a strong aura sounded behind them. "Your opponents are us." Hai Ryue's body was covered in a layer of sparkling white scales, and two large wings spread out from her back. The scales covered every part of her body, and there was a white mask on her face. The mask was in the form of light and shadow. It looked a little illusory. The mask was exactly the same as her face. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen, covering every part of her body. The 100-colored scales kept extending from her waist down to a short battle skirt that was only 8 inches long. Her upper body was also covered with thick scales like armor, outlining the perfect curve of her chest. In the center of her chest, a milky white bead the size of a ping-pong ball was constantly emitting waves of white halos. She had a head of strange blue hair that was draped over her back. There were 2 protrusions on the top of her head, and the armor on her shoulders had sharp triangular points. Her dragon eyes were shining, turning from blue to red like 2 rubies, forming a sharp contrast with the white scales on her body. She spread her arms to the sides of her body, and the 3 sharp claws on her fingers flickered with a cold light. On either side of Hairyue was the dog Zodiac Guan Ping and the rabbit Zodiac Modi. Even Chi Yu saw their appearances after their zodiac transformations for the first time. Guan Ping's body was covered with a layer of golden fur, and his face was covered by the golden light. His limbs were several times thicker than before, and his muscles were bulging. Similar to the demon werewolf, his hands and feet had grown sharp claws, but the difference was that his claws were thicker and stronger. His body had also expanded to about 2.5 meters tall, and his hair was 3 times longer than before. His golden hair hung on both sides of his shoulders, and his stalwart body was emitting a faint golden light, making him look like a lion mastiff. He was not a simple zodiac beast, but a lion mastiff. The feeling of being filled with power was not suppressed by Hairyue's might, even when he was next to her. Compared to Guan Ping, Modi looked much gentler. After her zodiac transformation, her entire body was covered with snow-white fur, and a lustrous luster enveloped her body. She did not have sharp claws, nor did she have a strong body, but after her zodiac transformation, the outline of her slender thighs became even more perfect. Her calves looked a little illusory, and it was impossible to see them clearly. Although the white light didn't emit any energy, it gave off a mysterious feeling. Wolf King Garnet didn't say anything. His actions represented everything. His figure flashed, and he immediately rushed out. After all, a Wolf King was a Wolf King, and the moment he rushed out, it immediately showed that he was different from ordinary werewolves. His wolf transformation didn't slow down his charge in the slightest. His originally gray hair turned silver, and his body instantly expanded to about 3 meters tall. His yellow eyes turned golden, and he let out a deep roar. After transforming into a wolf, his speed instantly doubled. His 2 huge and sharp front claws tore through the air, and 10 silver blades of light shot out, heading straight for Hairyue and the others. With a shout, the one who rushed out was actually Modi. As a rabbit zodiac, she didn't have the ability to fly, but when it came to jumping ability, none of the zodiac guardian warriors could compare to her. Her body instantly sprang up, and without hesitation, she met Garnet's attack head-on. Her legs left a series of elegant afterimages in the air, and 10 white lights shot out at almost the same time, accurately meeting Garnet's attack head-on. The white and silver lights collided in the air, and an ear-piercing sound of air being torn apart was immediately heard. Garnet, the Wolf King, was clearly unaffected, while Modi's body paused for a moment. However, she still courageously met Garnet's attack head-on. Bear King Baras's ferocity was revealed by the battle before him. He thumped his extremely strong chest muscles with both hands and charged forward with large strides. His originally huge body expanded once again at this moment, and the Bear King's mutation caused his height to reach an astonishing 5 meters. He pounced forward like a mountain. The black fur on his body flickered with a black gem-like luster, and his pair of bloodthirsty bear eyes emitted a ferocious glow. Guan Ping didn't have much battle experience, but his theoretical knowledge was extremely exquisite. Ever since he found out that he was a dog zodiac warrior, he had been the one to train the most diligently during the trip to Tibet. He was someone who usually didn't like to show off, but when it came to training, he could endure more hardships than others. Among the Zodiac Guardian God warriors who had already appeared, other than the 2 leaders of the Sacred Flame sect who had just received the news, he was the oldest. As a doctor, he had always been eager to excel, and he definitely didn't want to be weaker than others. Therefore, he had been diligently training his thundercloud force and skills every day, and today was the time for him to show off his skills. His 2.5 meters tall body against a 5 meters tall body was clearly disproportionate, but Guan Ping did not hesitate to meet him head-on. Although he was a dog Zodiac warrior, he was also a lion mastiff, and had the king's aura of a lion. In the face of an enemy, he would never back down. The huge golden fist met with the bear paw that was several times larger. With a loud bang, Bear King Barus was surprised to find that his enemy had not been sent flying by this slap. Under the bombardment of Guan Ping that was like a mountain, his charging body had no choice but to stop for a moment. The sharp and thick golden claws left a mark on Barus's strong chest muscles at lightning speed.